Hello, welcome back to Bald and Board Games. I'm Bald.
I'm bored.
And we are bringing you a long rulebook rundown of the other side of the hill.
Yes, if you check out our YouTube, you would have saw our unboxing. So we went through all the pieces, components, and everything of the game. Now we're going to walk through the rulebook rundown. So we'll give you a few pieces of information before we start. First, we'll show you it. There we go. Number one, as you can see, there's a massive board here. Two, if you look at some of the parts of the board, you're like, oh, that's concerning. This game is purchased because Nick and I love war games.
Mm-hmm.
We have Successors, which is a great game. We've played it multiple times. We'll still play it.
Game of
We wanted
Thrones,
something new.
All does come in like a lot.
Yeah. So I found this like 8-10 months ago. It's historically accurate to World War II, so it's why I bought it, because I enjoy historical events.
Mm-hmm.
But it is around Nazi Germany and being German generals.
Yes.
There is a fun piece of the game, though. We're called the Black Orchestra. We'll save that for later on what that does. But yeah, so for everyone's knowledge, we do not condone the activities of Nazi Germany.
No.
But we will enjoy beating each other in a war game.
And neither are we Nazis. I know we're bald and white men, but not even probably the furthest thing from. We just wanted a fun war game that was from a very unique angle of not being Nazi Germany trying to do the horrendous things they did, but being generals in that German army, and it seems like you are trying to one-up each other to get the most victory points or prestige points. Is that what they're called? The PP?
Probably Prestige.
Probably. Yeah, so that was a very interesting sort of thing. So I'm very curious to see how they weave the gameplay through this. Definitely probably the most complicated game so far that we have, it appears.
Yes. It seems like NAC War Games, who created this game, they have a bunch of other war games as well.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is their most complex that they've created in terms of strategy and difficulty. But stick with us. We'll go through. We'll break this into chapters. The first chapter is going to be a lot of setup. As you can see, there's a lot of things going on. So we'll talk about all the setup. The last thing we'll mention before we get started is we are specifically focusing on the competitive campaign. So there's multiple campaigns in here, which we'll cover, but we're going to do the competitive version of the longest campaign, and that comes in a few days after you see this video. If you join us on Monday, January 20th, here live on Twitch, we'll post on our Instagram the exact start time. We will be doing a full campaign playthrough, end to end. Could take up to 15 hours, but we'll be here.
Yeah, we are definitely gonna. How long does it say?
We'll get some pork schnitzel, some.
Well, how long does it say the campaign we're looking to do
10
potentially
to 14.
takes? It says 10 to 14?
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say if it takes any long, if it says potentially up to 20,
we'll
want to start Sunday night.
Yeah, no, it says 10 to 14, but we're
okay. So we'll start
getting going. It'll take
9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Monday, Inauguration Day.
Yep. And MLK Day.
And MLK Day. Woo.
All right. So to get started here, there's 2 different rule books. There's 3 rule books, really. We have a playbook, you have a competitive play rule book, and then there's a cooperative play rule book. The 2 rule books are almost identical, so we're going to go through the competitive version. But we're going to start with the playbook to help everyone understand what the scenarios are. So here we go. So the following scenarios are included thanks to the Kickstarter. So you have a bunch of different options that you can go through and do little 3 to 4 hour campaigns. Or you can do a thing called Armageddon. It is 23 turns. It starts at the beginning of 1939, which is the beginning of the war, goes to 1945 potentially, unless things go catastrophic, which is the end of the war. And again, it says 10 to 14 hours. We don't know exactly how long that'll actually be, but we'll see. So we're going to talk about how to set up scenarios, go through everything on this game board, and then figure out actually how to play this game.
Yeah.
So setting up scenarios. Each scenario includes the following information. It'll give you the duration of the scenario, competitive and solitaire suitability, historical setup for armies and markers, which are shown in a setup aid, which is right here, which we'll cover in a moment. Card setup, distribution of generals, according to the codes on their cards. It'll also give you any victory conditions and special rules if necessary. Historical setup. Using the setup aid for setting up markers and armies on the board, each scenario's historical setup section indicates which columns to use. So there's 2 sides here. Side 1 is the markers, so all of these markers and how they go on the table. Side 2 is all of the different control discs, armies, cubes, everything else in the 28 areas on this map.
Pretty crazy.
Additionally, free setup allows players to modify. We don't want to do that. We want to hold historical accuracy. And we've never played this before. We're not going to go.
Yeah, we're not going to
Usually, a lot of games we will. We'll just kind of like wing it. But a lot of games we understand much easier.
This was pretty hefty. Yeah, the other one's like, okay, yeah, I get it. Let's add a little complication in there. This one, I don't think we need the complication right now.
Yeah. Also, choosing high command. So once the scenario has been chosen, each player will receive a player board. We have that right in front of us on the game mat, which is really cool. Yep. Yeah, this whole thing you see on the table is actually a game mat. It's not the game board, which does come with the box.
Yeah. The game board is just the center area, and then you have your 4 player boards. Yeah. Everything else is just mat basic. So typically you would have to just kind of put the cards out yourself on the side.
Yep. So when we get to that, we'll distribute some cards. We'll talk about how that works with a 2-player game and getting the heads of operations and the other heads of state. And then there also are agenda cards and victory conditions. We have some other cards. We'll get into all that as we go into the rulebook part of it. But here we go. So Armageddon. Woo! Scenario duration up to 23 turns, 10 to 14 hours, unless automatic victory occurs or the collapse of Germany. That will auto end the game.
Okay.
Use 1939 in the setup aid. Okay. As instructed as per section 1203, set up the high command. So we'll come back to that. For event card setup, it'll go through all of these. We will start there for everyone because this is nice and simple. So, card setup. Separate the strategic and combat event cards into 2 separate decks.
Over there.
Place the 2 cards called 1939 out of the event deck next to the board, face down next to each other. These are the initial event cards for each deck. So, you should have 2 cards, both labeled 1939.
It should just be the top one. 2 cards. One for strategic, one from combat.
Oh, one from each, yep. So
the decks are pre-ordered for us from...
Perfect.
All the way down.
So that'll just go face down under current year. They will get revealed eventually. Place the remaining cards as sorted. Nice. In the appropriate stack.
Yes.
For the military, political, and production directive cards
over here
on this side, place the 1939 cards next to the board. They are available as the active ones. Place the remaining sorted by entry year aside. These are your decks for the rest of the game.
Boom, boom, boom. So you see over here, my camera's covering up, but we have the political directives here.
Production directives here in orange.
Yep. And then in the middle here, we're going to have military. 39. 40. Nope.
Yeah, the other one just is one. Next up, we have the black orchestra cards. Those will be sitting right over there, shuffled and ready to go. We have, shuffled face down.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep.
All these have like dates on them, except for I guess these. So.
Yeah, because those are going to be like a random draw, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
Combat decks. All combat cards are shuffled, placed face down. Agenda cards. Keep them aside until you get to a high command event trigger, but because we have this board. This player mat, we have a spot for them.
Yeah.
Additionally, we have a field marshal cards. Those came as an add-on, I believe, specific to the Kickstarter. It says it here somewhere. We have field objective cards and a little piece of information there.
Nope, those are Twilight Generals. Field marshal, there we go.
As he throws the card. So field marshal cards offer an alternative tiebreaker. To determine victory at the end of the game, specifically, obviously, in competitive mode. So instead of the rules provided in section 1.1 for tiebreakers, you're going to use the following. So we'll keep this off to the side as we go through. We will definitely play that because somehow we're going to tie.
For sure.
And somehow we're going to be at the end of the game in 14 hours and be tied.
That's how it goes. That's how it... What did we... We made a game where we tried to make it impossible to tie, and somehow we tied all the tiebreakers, which is ridiculous.
We did.
Yeah.
That was the thing.
Oh, my goodness.
We also in Fire Tower somehow tied. That game should never have ties.
Mutual destruction. That was hilarious.
We turned into LA. All right. Distribution of generals. Put the general cards without scenario keys 0000 of orange, purple, brown, and frost in a single deck sorted by entry year. Keep them aside. On a 2-player game, player 1, which I believe is, it doesn't matter. We'll decide one of us, player 1, player 2.
Yeah.
Player 1 will receive orange and blue. Player 2 will receive generals purple and brown. And that is it for card setup. Now, the setup table will go through everything else on this board.
And just so you know, on here has a scenario number, and right there it says 0, and it's in orange. So first player gets orange and blue, you said, right?
Yep.
So orange, blue, blue, and orange. And then player 2, same thing. Here we have purple, purple, brown, brown, purple. Oh, brown, purple.
So we'll just keep those, excuse me, in front of us for the moment. We don't have anywhere specific to put them yet because we haven't been told to. Here we go. So for the game board, as you can see it, both the left and the right are all of the cards we set up, and then there's a bunch of available markers. We're going to be using some of them, but these will be throughout the game. Off to the other side over here that you can't see off screen is a bunch of other markers. We'll bring them on as they need to be brought on.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call off everything. Nick's going to kind of put them where they need to go.
All right, so might as well zoom into that middle.
Yep. I'll do the first one. Year track, 1939. That just happens to be right in front of me.
Boom.
Turn track, autumn administrative. I hate that bothers me so much.
That says autumn there, but it says fall here.
Yep, 100%.
It says autumn on there.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
They made, because this was built, I think, in German. And Europe uses autumn. Us Americans are stupid and use fall. Because things fall off trees. Let's call it fall.
Autumn is a prettier word.
That's a bad word, yeah. So, year track 1942 for landing 1. Year track 1944 for landing 2. There's a little boat symbol right on there. You just put those right on down. Resource track will be at number 8.
Nice.
That will be up here.
Okay.
Then we're going to go right down the line. Rukmak, which should be a tank.
Should be a tank, okay.
Number 1. Luftwaffe, the planes, number 1.
Number 1.
Strategic warfare replacement, the boat, number 1. Military political production directives, all at number 1.
Military. Oop. Number 1. We got, what are you? Production. Number 1. Political. Number
And
1.
finally, consumer goods at number 2.
And you are consumers. Number 2. Okay.
There are 4 little project tiles that we have sitting somewhere up there. 4 scenarios that started in 1939. Those projects are not available yet. So one of them would be like the Manhattan Project at the start of World War II. They don't know they need that yet until Einstein comes to America.
Yeah, so we got like nuclear power, Tiger and Panther. Interesting. So
Yeah,
nothing
so-
for those?
Not yet.
Okay.
So those will come as the game progresses. And
Okay.
people are like, oh, we need to do something better.
Cool.
Project difficulty, -1 goes in the -1 box.
What's it look like?
The -1.
Oh, the -1. Goes into
The
the
-1
-1 box. The unrest? No. Oh, right here.
That was learned.
I'm learning. Okay, I'm learning.
Fanaticism track 2. Be your red.
Fanaticism?
Yep.
Boop, goes on 2. Fanaticism.
Yeah, thank you. Unrest 0.
Unholy. Unrest, think it's that guy. Yep. 0. And the middle.
Paratroops 5.
This is what?
Paratroop track. So paratrooper. A little blue one bottom. Yep.
Right there?
On the 5.
Okay.
U.S. commitment track. Neutrality acts.
So it's a USA commitment. Is on neutrality to the USSR.
No,
Where
U.S.
we at?
U.S.
Oh, US. Jesus, says right there. My goodness.
USSR is Russia. Neutrality. USSR, Nazi Soviet Pact.
I like historic games. It's not my forte,
Oh,
though. Art history, yes. USSR, you said?
Yep.
Oh, boy, there. What was it on?
Nazi Soviet Pact.
Boom. So start of the tracks. Got it.
Strategic warfare track is going to start at 1. And that is... Oh, these are all different ones. On the strategic warfare track. And this is where we forgot where it was last time. Oh, it's right here.
Yeah, we went searching for it
Yeah,
last time. We're like,
so-
where is this?
This one will start on the 1.
Okay.
This one I don't care about yet. Neither do I want that one either.
Technology.
Technology will start at the 0. These will start at 3 and 4.
Nice.
France will start in the Third Republic, and Italy right there. Boom, boom.
Okay.
As
Status of
independence. Yep. So it's Italy independence. That's France.
Oh, you said.
Oh, and Italy's the other one. Oh, yeah. There we go. So Third Republic for France, Italy independence.
So these are both here. Okay.
Yep. It then gives some other information here. So it has a sequence marker, which is over here. It says bombing of Germany. I don't know where that location is on the map. Bombing of Germany. There we go. So that's where we're going to start our sequence. We then have General Track 5
Oh, that's what those go.
for all
Look
of
at-
these.
We have this spot for the other markers right here.
Yeah, I put them out last time.
No, I mean like because we have like the stacks here, like that whole stack
Yeah.
goes there.
Yeah, but that's not here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's next. Literally next. General Track 5. That's a fun one. We did not set these out last time, this specific stack.
What does it look like?
It's all of these.
And it
Player
says
prestige markers.
Oh,
Literally.
5.
Yep. So I am these 2. You are these 2.
There we go.
So we have technically we're moving 2 set. Oh, so we're playing 2v2s.
Right.
That's
For 2
cool.
player. That makes sense.
Yeah. So then to Nick's point, we have a bunch of others. So we have 6 vacancies. Those will go up in this little marker section. We have a stack of priorities that will go in the priority section, 1 through 4. We have a no offensive right there. And there's actually 2 of those. There's a blue and a red.
For Eastern and Western.
Yes.
Looks like.
We have 3 dissident markers.
Nice.
That'll sit right there.
Traders.
We have the open and closed ports, green on one side, red on the other for open and closed.
Cool.
And then we have this stack of isolated troop markers. Which there should be 5 there. There seems to be more, but that's fine.
3, 4, 5, 6.
They all say the same thing. So we might have got 1 extra by somehow. But we'll leave it here now, I guess. Back's all the same? Yeah.
All right. Cool.
Influence markers are only in competitive scenarios. These 4 influence markers will all go on general track as 0.
Oh, interesting.
If you're playing other scenarios, it'll go further on the track. So you can influence different areas and potentially move around, I guess. I don't know. That was... So, fun thing, all of that was only side 1 of the setup guide.
And that's as far as we got the first time we tried to
No, we
record
got
this
side 2.
video.
We got side 1 and 2.
I was saying before the camera, like
Oh,
the
yeah.
front facing. So we're still here. You can still see us.
Setup map 2.
All right.
We will start with a Western Front marker of 2. And these are the air and naval control markers. A Eastern Front marker of 3. A Southern Front marker of 1. And a German marker of 5.
Oh.
We will now set up area by area. We will need 1 black and 2 blue discs. Starting in area 1, which is Poland. So it'll be black, blue, blue.
Goes black, blue, blue.
We will also need 5 gray army discs.
Cubes.
Thank you. Cubes.
Our regular armies.
Yep. That will sit in Poland as well. We will also have two generals, von Rundstedt and von Bach, which are in piles for
39.
39. They should be in this stack right here. Von Rundstedt and von Bach.
And... I think they go like this. I'm assuming the higher
Yep,
number on
and then-
top, the 10.
I'm going to put that one aside. You should have von Bach, I'm assuming.
Fedor von Bach. Yes.
I don't know where we're doing. Let's put them aside just in case. Area number 2, which is Hungary, is going to have 1 black disc, 1 white cube.
So 1 black disc goes here as well.
On Prague. Yep. 1
And
white cube.
cube.
Area 3 will be the same, which is Yugoslavia. 1 black, 1 white.
And we're sure that's where the blacks go?
I
Guess the
believe so.
symbol
It'll
might-
clarify in the rulebook, but I
I
believe
guess
so.
the symbol looks like it matches, right?
Yeah.
1 white cube as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Area 5, which is the United States. Nope. Baltic states, obviously.
United States.
Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia will have 1 black, 1 white.
Okay, 1 axis. Whatever, it's there.
Yep.
The mat is not quite flat
Yep.
yet. We'll have to just leave this out and
For
hopefully
Saturday.
we'll just put a bunch of games on it.
Yeah. Moving to over here. Moving to down there. Area 15, Iraq, Iran, 1 blue. Because it's run by United Kingdom.
No idea where it goes.
I'm assuming it's the start of the left.
I have no idea.
We'll find out. Area 16, also 1 blue. Area 17. Oh, we're in Denmark and Norway. Denmark, Norway will start with 1 black, 1 white. And black will start over here. This looks like the number 1.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I think that the axis alignment goes in the lowest
Number. Yeah.
number, which is what it's been doing.
Yeah. Area 18, which is good old Great Britain, we'll start with 1 blue.
Good old Great Britain. I'm gonna assume it goes in the highest number. I don't know. Figure it out.
Area 19, which should be Belgium, Holland, 1 black, 1 gray.
Gray army.
Yep. Area 20.
This had no army in Great Britain.
Nope, just blue.
Okay. Northern France.
Northern France, area 20, 1 blue. Area 21, France.
Southern France.
1 black, 2 blue.
Oh,
Because this is the attack through Poland, right? Southern France.
that's a square too. Interesting.
A gray and a white.
Gray and a white must be a general there, I guess.
And a Von Lieb,
Probably.
which I believe you have as well.
Yes.
Area 22, moving to Northern Italy, 1 black. Area 26, which will be Northern Africa, 1 blue, run by the UK. And Egypt would be also in the same.
One
Run
blue.
by France and then the UK, yep. The Force Pool, which is right there. We'll start with cubes, 2 black, 1 gray, 3 whites. We have now completed the setup guide.
Whew. All right. Well, we definitely look more organized than before for like the pieces
Yeah.
that are out there.
So last thing I'll call out, and we'll flip flop through the rule book back and forth like we do in most of our rulebook rundowns and how-tos. For this game specifically, I got the Kickstarter version, so it came with some extra cards. So we did get a bunch of extra cards in the different decks. We got a nice dice tray over there. We have additional markers and pawns and things of that nature that you'll see as we progress and play the game. And then the fun thing is we have specialty dice. That was one of the unlocks in the stretch goals. So instead of just basic 1 to 6 dice, they all have symbols based on the the front, Western front, Eastern front, German front that you're rolling for.
Oh no. Bad mess.
All right, I'll do the intro and then I'll give it to you for section 2.
Sure.
All right, introduction.
It's gonna be wordy, so
Yes, it is.
buckle up.
And we'll try to help learn it and explain it as we go.
Yep.
So introduction. The Other Side of the Hill is a board game that simulates World War II from the point of view of the German High Command. Up to 4 players represent military leaders in an internal struggle for power as they manage Germany's wartime strategy. They will vie for prestige by advancing the careers forward of their favored army and army group commanders. They will pursue hidden agendas to dominate the office corps on behalf of competing interest groups, all while the Allies press in on every front. In addition to competitive play, which is regulated in this manual, the game offers fully cooperative, semi-cooperative, and solitaire play.
Interesting. Semi-cooperative.
Yeah.
We suck at that.
Yeah. For reading the rules specific, it says in a 2-player game, there's going to be tan highlighted text that will apply to us. For game components, it's kind of everything we went through already. Mm-hmm. They have a nice glossary in here for some of the verbiage.
Yep.
And then the general course of play. So it says, before starting the game, players choose a scenario. We have chosen Armageddon. The game may end on any turn, as we mentioned before, by the collapse of Germany or automatic victory. At the beginning of every year, each player selects one card representing a section of German high command. Players play their roles of heads of their section. Throughout the game, players are awarded prestige points for their achievements. Mm-hmm. There are 4 heads of section. You have the OKW. The OKW controls military and political direction. You have the head of operations, which controls troop movement and the allotment of replacements. You have personnel, the head of personnel, which influences the distribution of generals among players and appointments to command positions. And then you have the head of production, which controls production, projects, and is responsible for strategic warfare. Each of these cards have 2 sides, a gray side that is used before the reorganization of the high command, which is section 3.3.1. The red side is used after. At the beginning of every year that you play through, new general cards are distributed among players. Generals may be appointed as heads of army groups and fronts, or may be chosen as leading generals. Players are awarded prestige as the result of their general's success. And then it says, when the reorganization of high command takes place, which is in 1942, you'll actually get agenda cards. That'll help add on prestige points if you complete your agenda. I will double check this. So we're setting this up. So choosing sections of high command. So it says, for this, distribute section cards randomly or alternatively hold an auction. We can just randomly deal them out.
Bottom one, middle one, bottom one, top one.
Sure.
So I got head of production and head of operations. So they also have these nice like little tags, which you have like a stand where you could put it in front of you. We're going to have them just face up so you can see what we have. So you need personnel and you have OKW.
And we have one other change we have to make.
What's that?
Is I have orange and blue.
Mm-hmm.
I will give you blue. I need brown.
Oh, no, I said first player takes orange and blue. So you can use that board. Doesn't matter the color. They're all the same.
That's true. Okay, yeah. So we're going to be playing both boards. That's what I was at.
Yeah.
So we will both have 2 boards here. So we'll be sitting in the middle when we actually play, or I'll be standing most likely. So we each have a section of high command where that can go into or become a general. We'll also have our corresponding generals ourselves. So we'll have to split the colors into our own sets. We don't know how everything else fits in yet.
Interesting.
But that is where this book will come in handy. All right, so right into section 2.
Here we go. Section 2, Housekeeping Rules. This section includes the rules for managing cards, generals, enemies, area control, as well as guidelines for communication between players in the sequence of play. Though placed at the beginning of the rule book, these rules will be better understood in the context of the sequence of actions and turns. So 2.1, Managing Cards. When a rule or a card's text instructs a card to be discarded, remove it from the game. However, if the card includes the recyclable symbol, which is the typical recyclable symbol, the triangle with arrows, it may remain available if its objectives are not met. After play, event cards may be discarded and removed from play, shuffled back into their deck, or added to the following year's events as instructed by their text. Place used combat cards face up in the used combat card pile, which I believe is over here on that side.
Yep.
When the last combat card in the combat card deck is played, shuffle the cards in the used combat card pile, place them face down as a new combat card deck. The use of directive cards, general cards, section cards, agenda cards, and black orchestra cards is explained in the pertinent sections. Whenever a card's text in this rulebook is contradicted each other, the card's text prevails. So cards rule all. Managing generals. Every general in the game is represented by a card and a marker. A general's card and marker include the following information. So you have the seniority level,
which is a blue number inside of like the Caesar Roman flowers there.
The confidence factor, which is the red number.
Yep.
The name, the year, the interest group. You have the combat rule. You have the combat rule symbols above that. The setup code, which are the numbers we showed earlier. You have the special rule at the bottom, potentially a misfortune on some of the cards as well, which tells you when they die. And then the same information is summarized on the tokens, prioritizing the interest group, seniority factor, and confidence factor, as well as the year.
Yep.
Okay. And then it just kind of goes over what all those mean. So the seniority factor, this number is used when appointing generals to positions and when selecting the leading general in combat. The higher the seniority factor, the more senior the general is. Again, that's the blue number. Confidence factor, the red number. This number is used when deciding whether a general is dismissed or stays after being questioned. The higher the confidence factor, the less likely a general is to be dismissed. And then, of course, the interest group just tells you they belong to the old guard, professionals, sympathizers, or if they're dissidents. Setup codes we went over. That just tells you how to set up your generals during whichever scenario you are playing or what part of the scenario you are in currently. The combat rules section indicates when and how a general will affect combat, and the symbols after the heading stand for the requirements that must be met for the general to be able to affect combat. So there's some prerequisites. The special rule includes rules applicable to the general not connected to combat. The misfortune is misfortune. It's a bad moment.
So, for example, there's some of these generals, because this is historically accurate, who die in the war, who kill themselves, etc. So, for example, here, Adolf Strauss, in 1941, died of poor health. So, things like that can happen, and that obviously impacts the generals you have to play with as the game progresses. You have to know the misfortune and what year potentially could happen.
Yeah, so like that guy, when he comes out, I know I have until 1941 to do what I need to do with him because he's gonna die. So it's almost like being a time traveler in charge of these generals. All right, so then it goes over the game board that we have in front of us both here on the side of the map. So starting in, looks like starting in the bottom left, you have the available generals.
Yep.
So this space of the board is for generals that you have available at your disposal. So all the cards that we have currently for generals will end up going there. The activated, so the general has acted as leading general in combat in the current year. His card is in the activated general's deck of a player's board, and the marker is in the general markers box, like we have on our board currently, I believe. No? Oh, no, it's over there.
I gave it to they're over your right arm.
Gotcha, yep. So the general markers box is what Steve was just showing you here. That's the general markers box. But the general may be nominated for a position, but not for activation as leading general during combat for the remainder of the year. In command is the next one over. The general's card is in the in command general's deck in a player's board, and his marker is on the map in a AG head box or an OB head box. Okay, so the ones we have down here need to be in command, because we have those out on the board currently.
We would match them to the appropriate color base. This one goes here.
Okay, this general may be nominated for a new position, but not for activation as leading general during combat. Okay, dismissed is not on here because that's just taking the general away. So the general's card and marker have been removed from play and cannot be used for any purposes. Important note, at the bottom, the maximum number of generals a player may have at any time is 8 in a 4-player game, 10 in a 3-player game, and 15 in a 2-player game. We may actually end up just playing with one.
Yeah.
So it's just you have them both in the in-command spot because they're in command and the rest are available for us. That makes it easier too then.
Yeah.
Just having the one board in front of you. Okay. Managing armies. Armies are represented by wooden cubes. There are 4 types of armies. So we got them right over here. Pull out.
Yep.
Those for you. So you have the black cubes. You want to?
Oh.
You have the black cubes, which are the German Panzer armies. You have the gray cubes, which are German regular armies. You have the white cubes, which are German reduced armies. And then you have the yellow cubes, which are the German, or sorry, not German, those are the satellite armies. So what's kind of nice about those is the gradient of the black down to white, which give a visual indication of greater than, lesser than. The armies in play must be either in the area's armies boxes or the force pool. So on the board, we have all these in the army boxes on the board. The force pool right there. Armies enter the force pool during setup when the production directive card or country's activation places them there. Armies are deployed from the force pool to areas during the economy segment. German armies removed from the map as losses or when taking replacements are placed in the force pool. Satellite armies removed as losses are withdrawn from the game. So they go back to the supply. The stacking limit printed in an area's armies box indicates the maximum number of Axis armies that may be placed in the area. Armies cannot be deployed or moved to bases. So that's this little number on all of these. That's the maximum, which is why this one only has the 5 gray cubes as matching that 5.
Yep, because the start of the war, Germany fully has Poland under its control.
There you go. Some history.
September 1st, 1939.
Each army's box has 1 or 2 AG head boxes where the markers of the generals appointed as head of army group are placed.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. Area control. The faction controlling an area is indicated by the alignment marker. An area controlled by the axis if it contains an occupied or satellite marker. None of those do. An area is controlled by the Western faction if it contains a Western marker. An area controlled by Soviet faction if it contains a Soviet marker. An area is not controlled by any faction if there is a disputed marker in an alignment box or does not contain an alignment marker at all, aka it's neutral. So we weren't supposed to put any markers on like these at the start of the game?
I would assume we should, but it didn't tell us to. It did not say to put those markers out, but that would make sense. That the controlling stakeholder would have control of those locations.
Is it maybe the color coding?
No, there's no, like those.
No, like underneath. See how it's color coded underneath, like blue, yellow, red, green.
Maybe.
Ma?
It's a good question. Because, so Area 2.
It might tell us who gains control based on the markers.
Yeah, because Area 2 Hungary is definitely German control. There's no color underneath.
And this one would be disputed, I would assume, because there's, or Western, because there's 2 Western and only 1.
No,
or maybe it's disputed.
Access. That's not disputed. The Western leave.
Oh, I was wondering because there's more than there. Oh, we'll find out. Stay tuned. Control disk indicates sector control with an area. A sector with an axis control disk and all sectors with a lower number. A sector with an axis control disk and all sectors with a lower number are controlled by the axis faction. That's how it's written. A sector with an allied control disk and all sectors with a higher number are controlled by the allied faction. The control disk belongs to. Therefore, an area...
Google Translate.
Oh my god. Yeah, therefore, in an area controlled by the axis control disk will be in the sector with the highest number, and there will be no allied control disks. Interesting. So
that means these should all be over?
Maybe. So control disk in a sector. So controls indicate sector control within an area. Okay. So these disks indicate control. That makes sense.
Yep.
A sector with an axis control disk.
So the black.
Yep. And all sectors with a lower number are controlled by the axis faction.
Which makes sense for Poland. So Poland, the axis is in 1, which means they control Poland.
Okay. So what does it mean?
Ulster in southern France, which means they control southern France, which makes sense.
So would this be here? So would it automatically be on the lower numbers then?
It says all with a lower number.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, sure.
Yeah, sector with
That's the only disc there anyway, so there's no dispute. They got it.
And all sectors with a lower number are controlled by the Axis faction. A sector with an allied control disk and all sectors with a higher number are controlled by the allied faction the control disk belongs to.
So they was to be at the highest number. Okay.
Sure. That's how I understand that. Okay. Cool. Therefore, in an area controlled by the Axis control disk will be in the sector with the highest number, and there will be no allied control disks.
Ah, no, so it isn't. Okay.
So therefore, in an area controlled by the Axis, the Axis control disk will be in the sector with the highest number, and there will be no allied control disks. So those ones are in the highest ones.
So these are the highest.
Okay. In an area controlled by the Allies, the Allied control disk will be in the sector with the lowest number.
So we flipped it. Okay.
And there will be no Axis control disks.
Okay, so to clarify for everyone, so black discs are Axis, being specifically here Germany, but also Italy and Japan. Those will go in the highest number if it's non-disputed. So in these cases where there's only one disc, it goes in the highest number. Blue is the Allies, so right now is just France and United Kingdom, or Great Britain, actually, United Kingdom doesn't exist. Those would go in the lowest numbers. These two here, Southern France and Poland, are just going to be disputed, which he's probably going to say right now.
Yep. So in
there it is.
in a disputed area, there will be both an Axis and an Allied control disk. In the following example, the Metz sectors are controlled by the Western faction, and the Frankfurt sector controlled by the Axis. So it just has two different disks on there. So those are disputed.
Yeah. These are okay. So these.
And then the alignments are Western. This one shows satellite for. Yeah, because there's Western and East. Okay, so yeah, so the Eastern ones won't go out unless we get Russia involved, USSR.
The Soviets, yeah.
The Soviets. So all the blues will be Western, and then
occupied.
So then these will all be satellites.
Wait, no.
That's what it shows here.
Oh, so it's the other side of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Because they're. Yeah. Okay. In a neutral area, there will be no control disks unless it contains a Festung sector. In this case, the Axis control disk indicates that part of the area belongs to Germany, and it allows players to move and deploy armies in that area, even if it's neutral, like in the following example. So, I don't know what a Festung sector is. Is this the Festung sector?
I don't know.
That might be. So those might have to go into the Festung sector then. Is that what that symbol is?
No, that symbol is the Axis symbol.
Possibly. I'm just looking at the example they're giving. I think that's a Festung sector. Yeah, that's a Festung sector.
Okay. Is
So
always the number one or just that symbol?
So that symbol.
Okay.
Which
is all these. Yeah.
So then these are all neutral still. So the only time that this guy goes on the highest number is if there is no Festung sector. So in a neutral area, there'll be no control disks unless it contains a Festung sector. In this case, the Axis control disk indicates that part of that area belongs to Germany, and it allows players to move and deploy armies in that area, even if it's neutral. And it shows an example. So the only time...
So, like, for example, here, Romania, Bulgaria does not have a Festung sector. If Germany goes and takes that over, then it would become officially taken over and occupied by Germany.
Yeah. I mean, the first example here has a Festung sector, but it has the Axis disk down here.
In Hungary, which is this.
Right. Where this one has it in the Festung sector.
Interesting.
So it didn't give us any other indication.
What was the country on that
one? Munich, Florence. Munich. Where's Munich? Right here.
Okay, Northern Italy.
Right.
Huh.
So how do you know if it goes on the 2 or the 1?
Because all these have that symbol on the corners too.
Well, those ones don't. So I guess here's
no, the ones that we put the markers on the start.
So those must go there.
Yeah.
Because like if we have one here, it'll go on the 3.
And then be taken over by.
And then it'll be a satellite.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Sure.
We're all learning together.
We are. So that was area control. So in summary, real quick again, Allied goes in the lowest number by itself, and that has changed the alignment to Western. Axis seems like if it doesn't have a Festung sector, it'll go on the highest number, which will make this a satellite. But if it has a stung sector and it's just the one allied disk, it's still neutral, but Germany has, troops essentially in Munich there. Oof. All right. Got 2 more sections here. Then it's all over to you. Communication between players. The active player is any one segment is the one who must act or make a decision in that moment. Other players may make suggestions or give advice, but once a player announces their decision, all their players must shut up. They must refrain from trying to dissuade them. Though the head of OKW may overrule that decision.
Oh, I got that card.
Cards on the game board and the player boards are public information, and players must show them if asked to, with the exception of hidden agendas and black orchestra cards. These cards are secret, and players may not reveal or discuss their contents.
We never want to.
Sequence of play. A full year consists of a new year phase and 4 seasonal turns.
Yep. So right here you'll see the year track. So 1939, each of the years, and you have the 4 seasons, and then there's things that happen in each season.
Each seasonal turn consists of 1 administrative phase and 1 or 2 operations phases, 1 in winter, spring, and fall, 2 in summer.
Yep.
Every turn follows the same sequence. And then it gives you the sequence here. So A, administrative phase. And in the administrative phase, you have the economy segment, which consists of bombing Germany, German replacements, satellite replacements, production table.
Yep.
That over there. Then, in that same administrative phase, you have production directive segment. Then you have the political directive segment. Then the military directive segment.
Yep.
Then it's on to the operations phase, where you have the strategic warfare segment, the movement segment, the command segment, the Axis offensive segment, the Western offensive segment, the Soviet offensive segment, and then the end segment, which consists of military directive objectives check, supply check, and victory check. Then lastly, the operations phase, only in the summer, and you'll repeat segments you repeat the entire operations phase again.
Because you're doing 2 operations.
In the summer, yep. Then you have the new year phase, which is a just segment, section card segment, new general segment, and the planning segment. Now, the OKW role can override decisions in the following areas. So the entire economy segment, so that's bombing Germany, German replacements, satellite replacements, production table, they can override any decision that's made by the person in charge in that moment. So one of us, either head of operations.
It says so on the board up here for each of these decisions. So like bombing of Germany, it specifically says under their production.
That's me.
So that's gonna be the head of production. Operations, blah blah blah. So, and then personnel and OKW. So the 4 roles of the heads will have decisions based on what is here. There's only 2 that don't, and those are just checks towards the end of that end segment.
So with that being said, even though the OKW is not down there, the OKW can overrule decisions made by that active player in the economy segment in its entirety. So that's bombing Germany, German replacement, satellite, and production table. They can also overrule decisions in the production directive segment. They can then also overrule in the strategic warfare segment, the movement segment, the Axis offensive segment, Western offensive segment, Soviet offensive segment, and then lastly, the planning segment. So the OKW has a lot of power.
Yes, but we'll show it on this one right here. There is an unrest table.
Mm-hmm.
If the OKW makes decisions and overrules some things, the unrest moves around.
Ah.
So it's definitely going to be it's positive, negative. It can help you as a player to make the opposite decision, but it's definitely going to cost you unrest, and some citizens are not going to be happy.
Sounds like it's time for a citizen's arrest.
All right. So, as Nick mentioned, each of these years, as you go through the seasons, will start with the administrative phase. So, bombing of Germany will start off, and you go in order. So, this literally is going to go through the economy segment and go through what all of these things mean. So, excuse me. In the economy segment, the bombing of Germany is resolved, replacements are added to the map, and values of the production table are adjusted. Production table is this whole table over here with all of those values. It does say important. Do not move production markers to the left on the production table as points are spent. They can only be moved. Well, excuse me. They can only be moved when the production table is adjusted. So start off with the bombing of Germany. So apply the effects of the bombing of Germany according to the value indicated by the air and naval control marker in its track in the Germany box. So that Germany box right here in the center, where that number is, tells you what to do. If it's in the 5 spot, which is where it starts, no effect. Proceed to the next phase. If it's in the 4 box, the head of production must move 1 replacement marker 1 box to the left on the table. If it's in the 3 box, you move 2 replacement markers to the left, or 1 2 spots. And if it's in the 2 or 1, you must move 2 replacement markers 1 box to the left, or 1 2 boxes to the left, and then also move the unrest track down.
So you move those.
Or add 1. So add 1 to the unrest, because you're becoming more unrestful.
Unrested. You're getting more tired.
So pretty simple. You check where this is. You make the movements over there. I will call out that on in this game we have a nice huge ass player aid that tells us none of that information. That probably does somewhere. Maybe not. Actually, it doesn't. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's because it's on the board.
That's true.
Probably
There's
why
so much to do. Oh, it's right here.
It's on the board.
It's right underneath.
It's literally, yeah.
No, I didn't see it. It was right. It's so underneath each of the numbers in the German box. It tells you what happens. I didn't notice that before.
I thought you did. I thought that's why like you pointed.
Oh,
it says right
I
there.
wasn't reading. All right. So moving on to next is German replacement. So adding replacements. There are 3 types of German replacements. You have the Wehrmacht, Luftwaffe, and strategic warfare. Those are also listed in that production table. The values in these categories in the production table indicates the number of available replacement points of every type. Unspent replacement points are lost and cannot be used later on.
Okay.
So, start with Wehrmacht. For every Wehrmacht point, the head of operations must take one of the following actions. So again, this is only the head of operations unless the OKW decides otherwise.
That's me.
You would deploy 1 reduced army from the force pool, and reduced armies are the white. Good call.
I just remember because I remember that the gray is regular, so reduces. Yeah.
So you would deploy 1 reduced army from the force pool to the army's box of any area with axis control.
Nice.
Providing it's not over the limit marked in the box, so you can't add it to Poland.
There, right.
You have the second option of replacing 1 reduced army with a regular army.
Okay,
so you can upgrade 1
from the force, and
then the same thing. You could go from 1 regular up to a panzer.
Okay, so you can take a black, and you can go boop boop.
Yep. So you have one of those 3 options you would take based on the number. So if the number's on 2, you would do it twice.
Okay.
They're affected by the following restrictions. The force pool. An army cannot be moved to an area if there is not at least 1 army of that type in the force pool. So example, the head of operations cannot move a panzer army to the force pool and replace it with a regular one, and 1 reduced army or 3 reduced armies from the force. What?
Come again? Oh no, Steve's
Oh, okay. It pretty much says like it has to be available. Is how it
has to be forceful.
It has to be available, yes, to swap.
Right. So I can't.
Because they're pretty much saying like you can't go from like white to gray and then also gray to black in the same like movement. So you can't like double jump. And then it says it also cannot be added to areas with an isolated marker, which makes sense. So if there's one of the isolated markers is down, you can't do anything there.
So we couldn't do this to where I upgrade that and then upgrade this.
Yeah, because it says the example says the head of operation cannot move a panzer to the force pool.
Okay, so that's moving it to the force pool.
And replace. Oh, so you can't go backwards.
Okay, so you can't go forwards though.
You can go forward. You can't go backwards. Yes.
Okay, got it.
So if you had like
you can't downgrade.
Yeah.
Got it.
Because you're like, oh, I want to have more armies here to be able to spread them. So you can't downgrade. If you've already upgraded, you're committed.
Got it. Okay.
That makes way more sense after reading it out a second time. Luftwaffe replacements, which are the airplanes. The head of operations must add 1 to the air naval control value in one of the front boxes or the Germany box.
Okay, so that's all. So there's a southern front, western front, eastern front, and Germany here.
Yep. So you have to add 1 to any one of those boxes.
Okay.
Based on the number.
Point.
And then you have the strategic warfare replacements. For every point, the head of operations must add 1 to the strategic warfare value in its track.
So
the marker cannot be moved to the 3 or 4 if they contain the lockdown marker.
So that's as far as that could go right now.
Yes. And then you have satellite replacements. If at least 1 satellite army, which is yellow, is in the force pool, you must roll a yellow combat die for each of those armies. If at least 1 of the axis symbols, you want to show that on the yellow die? If one of the axis symbols is rolled, you pick 1 satellite army from the satellite country's box in the force pool and place it in any of that country's home areas with a land supply.
So that would be, if we had one of those there,
yep,
we could then take this
and put it
into that corresponding country.
Yep.
So we're not supposed to have any satellites out right now, right?
No, has not started.
Okay.
According to the paper, we have not. Oh, no. Yeah, because yellow is shown in 1941, not 39.
Got
so
it.
Nothing yet.
Okay. So then this is correct, that we have no satellites. These are just those. Okay, so that...
I think this is saying we're on day 1. So this is literally September 3rd, 1939.
Yeah.
France and Great Britain just declared war on Germany. Germany has already taken over Poland. They appeased them. They moved into southern France, and they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was going to try to speak French. Didn't work. I just gave up on it halfway through. And then they went to war.
You got as far as whoa, whoa, whoa. Oui.
So that was German replacements. So now, and satellite replacements. That covers both of these by the head of operations.
Okay.
We then move to the production table. The head of the production may then rearrange production markers any way he wants, provided the sum of the values does not exceed the resource number available, which is 8.
Okay.
So in this case, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Makes sense.
So after all of that just happened, the head of operation or the head of production can come in and be like,
I'm going to drop consumer goods down and push another one up. I'm going to push you down to 0 to push that up as well.
Yep.
Interesting.
The positions of the production markers are limited to the available boxes. Obviously, you can't go to 4 if there's no 4 available.
You can't go below 0 or to 0 if you're in that bottom section where it goes as low as 1.
Correct. The positions of the Werkmark, Luftwaffe, and strategic warfare markers are limited at the beginning of some scenarios as reflected. They cannot be moved to box 3 on their tracks until they are flipped.
Oh, that's the yellow. It says yellow 2 on the actual markers there.
Nice. The value of the 3 directives.
Let's see.
Oh, yeah. So there's a little yellow 2 on the top here. Then you flip it over and there's no marker.
Yeah.
So it'll tell us when to do so. The 3 directives right under that determine which cards of each type can be played in sequential segments. For every point added to customer goods, you add 1 to the Fanaticism value on its track.
Really quick. Consumer goods, not consumer. And Fanaticism.
Hilarious.
Or fanaticism. Fanaticism. It's like infanticide. Like, terrible.
For every point subtracted from consumer goods, you subtract 1 from that value as well.
From that value, yeah. What was the other word you used to mess up? Or orthogonally?
No, I intentionally did that.
Okay.
What's the one I always do?
It was like Dynamic Viking.
No, it's in like Isofarian Guard.
Oh,
I do every week.
Oh, man. What is that? Oh, it's such a simple word, too.
I just like phrase it weird.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I have no idea on top of my head. If you know, go and tell us in the comments and maybe we'll
So as this marker goes up, this marker goes up. As this one goes down, that one goes down.
Oh, really? It's not the opposite way around?
No,
consumer
goods. Plus 1.
Consumer, not that one. Consumer goods.
Oh, consumer goods. My bad. Thank you. Resource. Consumer goods. Yeah. Oh yeah, it literally has the +1, -1 right there.
Yeah. They did a great job. So at first glance, this looks very overwhelming, but they did a really good job giving like those little like moments of, hey, if you do something, it also affects that.
Yep. All right.
Making sure that the audio is still there.
No, it's not time.
Oh, nice.
So that is the production table. So now we have the 3 directives, which I'll cover, then I'll give you the operations phase.
Yep.
So 3 directives. You start with production directive. In the production directive segment, the head of production may play one or more production directive cards.
That's me.
So those are the orange cards over here that are available. So you can play one or more of those cards that were selected in the New Year phase. So obviously right now we're starting 1939. These are the 1939 cards.
Yep.
For every, so we'll just cover on the card here. If you want to just toss one in front of you, zoom in.
Sure.
7.
So are you still on?
Put-
I know. I'm still
So on this card, in the upper left-hand corner, you have the cost of the card.
Okay.
In the upper right-hand corner, you have the year. You also have the name of the card. You have the prerequisite, which could be on some cards as a requirement.
So that's going to be in red.
Yep,
Okay.
and then you'll have the effect in which it does. So they have a cost between 1 and 3. A card can only be played if the value is equal to or higher than the cost.
Okay.
So right now our value is at 1. So the cost of a card of 1 or 0, which there is no 0, it's 1, is the lowest.
Oh, for the
can be
production.
played.
Yeah, because for production directives.
Yep.
So production directives 1. This costs 1. So good.
When a production card other than a project is played, so some of these will be considered called a project, which
Yeah.
are tokens. The effects are immediately applied. The card is then discarded. Projects are described in the next section.
So then this here, the effect being applied, the fanaticism would go down by 1. Resources would go up by 1 if we played that.
Project cards have a little bit more information. They still have a cost, a year, a name, a prerequisite, but they also have a development and advance factor, as well as setup codes as to what scenarios you can use them on.
So this one says 1, 2, 3. So obviously we're not using this for number 0.
Correct. They show for the development factor, that is the number of success results needed to complete the project. The advance factor indicates the minimum die roll to obtain a success. I love how they did that. That's cool. So you have to get 3 successes of at least 4 or higher.
It's very RPG-y.
I know, yeah, that's why I like it. The progress of project cards is monitored in the project track on the board. When the head of production plays a project card for the first time, play the associated project marker with the project side up in the box of the project track matching the development. Yep. It is then considered to be started. The card may be played again on later turns until the project is completed. After a project card... What?
I'm playing it again and again and again because knowing me, I'm going to continue to fail.
After... Yeah, you should not be... You should not randomly do this. We're not playing cooperatively, so that's fine, actually.
Yeah.
After playing a project card, including the first time, the head of production rolls at D6. Subtract 1 from the advance factor if the -1 is on the matching project marker. It's not right now, it's just in the -1 box.
Yep.
So if that comes
this
out
was
as on
here.
it, yep, you subtract 1 from your roll.
Which would make this 4 a 3.
And he's already failed the first. With any other result, the marker is not moved. Oh, wait, sorry. If the die result results equal to or higher than the factor, move its marker 1 box to the right. The advanced marker, if it was out, would then go back to the box. If any other result, the marker is not moved, the head of production may place the advanced project marker on the project itself if it's not already there. If the advanced project -1 marker is on a different project, you may leave it or move it. So you could have multiple projects active at the same time.
Right. Makes sense. You have like just this track, the track and progression of the projects.
Yep. If you make it to the completed box, what do you know? The project is completed. Discard the card, flip the marker to the completed side, which is red, and place it in the current year's box in the year track. The effect indicate on the project card applies from that moment and is active until the end of the game.
Cool. So this one looks like it had a prerequisite that the card's submarine bases had already been played before we can try to do this strategic bombers project. And then this would remove the number 4 locked section from there. So I'm assuming submarine bases removes the 3 then.
Probably.
Cool.
So quick summary. It's production directive. If you're head of production or head of operations, You pick a card. The cost has to be equal to or lower than the marker in the box. You play the card. You do whatever it says. If there's requirements or whatever, prerequisites, you complete all of that. If it's a project, you do what Nick and I just went over, and you have to do the dice roll to move it down the track until it gets completed. You only do one die roll each time you work on the project.
No.
So you don't just keep doing it over and over. You just do it once. If you pass, you move it down. And then when you come around to this phase again, which could happen in the next winter, spring, summer, fall, you can try again. This is finally where I'm like, how the heck do we get points? If you move the project towards completion, each spot you move it, one pay.
Ah, so that's where
for the head of production
would get a PP.
Yes.
I get a PP.
So, moving on to the political directive. In this segment, the head of the OKW, which is me, would play one or more of the political directive cards.
Which are right here?
Yep. So for those cards, same thing. You have a cost. So it's the exact same thing. You have a cost, an entry year, a name or prerequisite, effect, and potential setup codes. So exact same thing. You have 1 of 3 costs. It has to be equal to or less than the marker on the track. When a political directive card other than a diplomacy card is played, its effects are applied immediately.
So these are all diplomacies. There you go. This one shows unrestricted severing warfare, so it would just be applied immediately. Cool.
Perfect. It then goes into the reorganization of high command. So if the head of the OKW plays the reorganization of the high command political directive card, or if the event card with the same name is revealed, in both cases, you're going to go and reorganize high command. So that means the positions of power we hold in high command will not stay the same the whole game. They will get shuffled up and redistributed, potentially multiple times throughout this game.
I have no idea. Reorganization of high command. I guess maybe is that an effect? That's a political card?
Political directive.
Is it called that?
Yeah. It's all in caps. Reorganization of the high command. You don't see it?
No.
No.
Oh, there it is. I just missed it.
Of course.
So, right here. Reorganization of the high command.
Yep. So it says if that card is played or it looks like it says if it's revealed. So there could be something when it reveals.
Oh, when it comes out. Assuming each year it just comes out.
Yeah. So there might be something where you can like search the deck maybe. Like an agenda card allows you to search the deck.
Maybe.
So if you pull it or it's revealed, it activates. And then you would go through the process.
It said event. It said if or an event.
Oh, or if that event card.
No, that's an event. Those are directives. Those are event cards over there.
So that makes more sense. So the event cards, if the event card also called Reorganization of High Command comes out, or if this one is played, only played, not revealed, played, then it triggers it.
I was going to say, because those are always revealed.
Yes. That's what I was thinking. Oh, maybe I could search for it and play it early. So in that case, you would flip all section cards to the Reorganization High Command sides. The head of the OKW takes the OKW agenda card and places it face up on the agenda card space on his player board. And then you're going to deal one hidden agenda card to each player. And it goes through some other information here. On a 2-player game, the head of the OKW takes the OKW agenda and places it on the agenda card space. Put aside the dissident secret agenda card. Reshuffle the 3 remaining agenda cards. And draw one of the 3 at random for his board without showing it to the opponent. The other player shuffles the dissonant cards with the remaining 2 cards and draws 2. The last card is removed from game. Okay. So that was specific to that card in the game, in both the event deck and here. The others are diplomacy cards, which are the ones that should be right there, right?
Yep.
So diplomacy cards have a cost, entry year, name, prerequisite as well. Then they have an activation factor and an OKW prestige bonus, as well as potential modifiers. So after playing this, roll 1d6, add or subtract any modifiers listed that are applicable. and go from there.
Nailed it.
When activating a country as a satellite, it goes through the steps of setting up the satellite. So this is where then you would take these little satellite markers and place them in the country's home area. You'd place an axis control disk in the highest number sector of that country. If any home areas already contain an axis control disk, move it to the highest number sector.
Oh, so that's how you get satellites out. So like this for Italy would get the Italy satellite.
Yes.
And
So
that would go
diplomacy in
down
Italy.
On the southern Italy. Got it. Interesting. That's okay. Cool. Or would it go northern? I guess we may be able to choose, I guess. I don't know.
No, because I believe there's only satellites for Italy, which is both. Yeah, maybe you choose. It also says if the country, if the country includes an area with a little cart symbol above it. So like right here, northern Italy has a cart but has an X in it. If it had one without an X in it,
right here,
which is there we go, nice bigger one right there.
Oh,
Add one to the resource track. So that's our resources up here.
That's the card. Sorry, I was trying to find one you guys see on screen.
So if you're on that, then on your resource track, you go up by one. You would then place a yellow army in the country's area, but not in bases.
So it goes over here, right?
No, it says into the country's home area. In the army's box of each of the country's home areas, but not in bases. So I'm assuming there's bases on these things. We have ports. Interesting.
Because over here it says Axis satellite armies.
So yeah, it says place one satellite army in the army's box of each of the country's home areas.
Yeah. So
each of the country's home areas. I think you would get both Italy's.
I don't know.
Countries' home areas, but not in bases. Except exemption if the satellite country is Vichy, do not place any satellites in its home area. Oh, Vichy's not a country. Vichy's gonna be one of these. Vichy, France, actually. Where's Vichy, French? Wow, Vichy, French. France? Wow, can't speak.
Vichy, French.
Oh, and where is Vichy?
Vini Vichy.
It should be in France.
Hmm.
Interesting. Where's the... Oh, that's Vienna. That is Vienna.
These must be bases. These are bases.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so these are home. So these are home areas. These are bases.
So I think
you place one in each of their home areas.
Yeah. So I think you would get both Italy's.
Okay. Well, all three, because this is also Libya is also Italy.
Oh, maybe based on. Oh yeah.
The flag.
Yeah. Then place the printed number of satellite armies in the activated country's box in the force pool.
So you get one in the home areas, and you get however many here. So you get
because it activates them for their okay.
So you get one there because it says one.
Yes.
And then you would get boom and boom.
No, 3, but okay. You're in Hungary.
My bad.
3 in Italy.
3 in Italy. Because there's 3. So there's 3 out here. Oh no, we did that wrong. The 3 cubes go there.
Oh, the 3 markers.
The 3 satellite markers. I assume
that would make more sense. And it does not give a perfect example of this.
But would it be these, or would it be the ones you were using before?
No, I think it'd be those, because now Italy is this. I don't know.
Because it shows the satellite.
Oh, it shows one of these. It says place one of those in each of the home boxes.
Okay, so it'd be one of those then.
Yeah, so you place. We'll take 3 of those.
There it is.
So place one of those in each box. Place an axis control disk in the highest number spot, which is one of the black disks.
So that would be boom, boom, boom.
If there's already one there, move it to the highest number.
That's what I was going to ask. Boom. Okay, so that's how that goes to the highest.
Yeah.
Number. Okay.
If there's a thing, which there's not in this case, there's no cart, so we're not going to adjust the resource track. Place a yellow cube in the army's box of each of the home areas, but not in bases. No, in the home areas.
Oh, and a cube.
Yeah, so and a cube in the home areas.
Okay.
Then next, separate marker, place the printed number of satellite armies in the force pool. So you also place 3 in the force pool. I think you do both. Because maybe they can then get more armies.
Interesting.
If the army belongs to an activated country and has a port box.
Unless that's where these come in.
No, it's
that's why they gave us a separate one.
Printed number of satellite armies.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe those are satellite armies.
And that's why.
And those are just.
To go out on the board, I
don't know.
Who knows? I mean, what does it say for the tokens?
It doesn't have a picture on that one.
No, the tokens in the front, though. It'll say the front of their satellite armies.
That's a good question.
I know these cubes are satellite armies, but maybe it also gave us
army counter
those tokens.
Army counters. Satellite armies include their national flag. Oh, they replace them. Those are an upgrade that replaces all cubes.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Okay. Sorry for the confusion. So because I have the Kickstarter with all the stretch goals, so all the cubes get replaced by their equivalent tokens, which make no sense. I like the cubes better. I don't know if you agree, but I like the cubes better than the little cardboard thing.
Well, yeah, because these are nicer for right here.
Sure, but on the board, I like the cube.
Yeah, the cubes are definitely better, and also like you don't need these satellite armies with the flags on them because they're not different than one another.
That's true.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
So now this makes way more sense.
There we go. So yeah, so 3 cubes here on their spot. 3 cubes, 1 cube in each of the home areas.
If it has a port, open that shit.
Open the port.
And add a naval supply marker in the army's box.
So that's gonna be one of them. Don't you have one of those?
No. Naval supply.
I don't see any belly button supply markers.
I do. It's the back of this.
Oh yeah, there you go. Nice. Boom. In the army's box.
In the army's box.
Okay.
If the country is Italy, add 2 to the air naval control value in southern. So southern fronts. The player at the head of the OKW gets a pay.
So you would get a PP?
Yes. So there's a lot of information. We'll try to bullet point it in our video to make sure it's clear for everybody.
So then we probably won't need all 4 of these then. We just need 1 to serve for both of us. Because we're not separating color.
No, we are, because these can change hands. So we have to run all of them.
Those can change hands, but they never change colors. Like you are both of those positions.
True.
And I am both of these. So we would use.
We'll pick which color we want.
We would use player 1
and 2.
And player 2.
Yeah.
And like those would be just over here. Yeah. That 4 of us. Got it.
A few more things for this section is said. A plot exposed. So one of the cards in the political direction is called plot exposed. This allows the head of the OKW to give a traitor marker to another player. The traitor marker stays with that player until the end of the game, or until the head of the OKW gives it to a different player. If there's another plot exposed card in play. At the end of the game, if the player with the traitor marker has a dissidence agenda card, he loses 10 PP. If any other player has a traitor marker, they subtract 5 PP from the OKW score.
What are the traitor markers?
I believe that is one of these I have over here. Right here.
Oh, this guy.
Yep. Little traitor. So
I'm a traitor.
The head of the OKW is pretty much trying to give that marker to someone who they know has the dissidence agenda card. If it doesn't end that way at the end of the game, the head of the OKW loses 5 points. Which is interesting because if the head of the OKW you switch, you could cost yourself 5 points at the end of the game. Or
yeah, I don't know.
So
the roles.
I don't know if
do the roles change.
I think it's because it says reorganization of high command, but I think that's just getting the agendas. So I don't think we actually get a change of the high command positions.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, if you have the OB West, OB Sud, or OB OST cards, those are command positions for each of the fronts. So Southern, West, and OST.
Activation of OB OST.
Yep. If these boxes are not occupied by a general's marker at the beginning of the scenario, they are not available because they have not been activated. In order to activate an OB command post, the head of the OKW must play the matching directive card. When one of these 3 cards is played, place a vacancy marker, which is over here, in the OB head box of the appropriate front. A general will be appointed to the new position in the command segment in the next operations phase.
So the OB head boxes are, so that's it. AG head box.
These are AG. Oh, OB is here. OB's in the fronts.
Oh, OBS. OB said.
OB West, SUD, and OST.
And it says not available.
Right now. So if a general gets put there due to something, this is how
you would take them and put them in one of the head boxes.
Yeah. So it says if these boxes are not occupied by a general at the beginning of a scenario, they're not available. So right now, yeah, they're not available. But as the years progress, the general probably gets placed there.
Got it.
In the scenario star in 1939, all three are not available, so they cannot be done. The political directive card activation of OB West cannot enter the game until 1942. Yeah, so you gotta wait until it happens. All right, last one on my section. Military directives.
All right.
The blue cards. In this segment, OKW may play one or more military directive cards, provided the prerequisites are met. So again, it's the exact same thing. You have a cost in the top, you have an entry year, you have a prerequisite, but in this case, you now have combat pawns above the prerequisite in eligible areas.
Yep. So this prerequisite is the season is not winter. And then combat pawn says area 1. I assume it means
Area 1, Poland.
Big boy here because it has a black picture.
We'll get to that in a second. But area 1 is Poland. So it says, important if the current season is summer, subtract 1 from the fancy track over there.
The fancy track over here.
On its track, if no military record are played in this segment.
Oh, if none are played, it goes down.
Played, then that one goes down.
Because the hype is going down. Essentially, that's a hype track.
Yeah.
It's a German hype track.
So, exact same statement. If it indicates a cost between 1 and 3, it has to match the number on the correct spot. If a military directive card is active during the turn it's played, so it starts active as soon as you play it, and stays active until the objectives are met. In the final segment of each operations phase, players check whether the objectives are met. If you meet them, then you move on. Activating countries. Some event and military directive cards may trigger activation of a neutral country. For the activation of the USSR, so bringing Russia into this, see Section 7.1, which we'll get to. In all other cases, activate a country by placing a Western control disk in the lowest numbered free sector of each country's home areas, but not bases.
So like here it shows activate. Boom, boom.
Denmark and Norway. So that would be here. So in that case, it would be the lowest free number. So a blue disk would go here into the 2. Place a disputed alignment marker.
Wait, why would Western go there?
Because you're trying to activate the country and get their troops to fight.
So blue would go there
because right now it's a neutral country.
So if it was over here in the USSR side, it'd be the USSR token that'd go.
Yeah. Yeah, it says later on it'll go specifically just on USSR, but for these it says Western specific.
Got it.
Then you're going to place a disputed alignment marker in the alignment box of all the country's home areas containing an axis disk.
Just that.
So disputed would go down.
Like we had over here.
And then place a Western alignment marker in the rest of the country's home areas.
On the rest of them.
Yeah.
So they would get.
No. Western alignment marker. That's a control disk.
Right.
Yeah, so alignment marker would also go down.
And the rest, so wait. So it says disputed.
Yeah, so like in Italy, again, you have 3 areas. So if only one was disputed.
Yeah, so this one wouldn't get.
Okay, that would go down if it's not disputed.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
That
so,
makes
but Italy would get the other ones.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right.
Oh, that's why I say choose the lowest number, because Italy would, and so you have these 3 for Italy. You have 22, 23, 27. So you would have to choose 22 to be the one that would be disputed, and then these would all get the.
Well, no, they won't because they're already access out.
No, I'm saying if that was the situation.
No, lowest number meaning lowest this number, not lowest that number.
No, it doesn't. No, it meant.
No. It means lowest on the track.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. So place in the lowest free sector of each country's home area. So each of these would get a blue disc.
Okay. On the lowest number. So how do you choose which one is
disputed? It's only if there's also an access disc.
Oh, any ones that don't have an access disc get the
Western
token.
Because then it's just Western.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. So now that was all of the economy administrative phase. So again, that'll happen once per season, 4 times a year. So you'll go through all of what we just did. Again, that'll be pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's mostly the fact of just
Choosing.
whoever you are, command-wise, choosing a card, playing the card, doing what the card says, and moving on. So overall, it's a lot of information, but it's pretty clear. And on here, it does.
It tells you nothing.
No, this one actually does. So this one does go through and kind of calls out, here's how to play what cards. So and it says who is responsible for each one too, which is nice. So
Cool.
OKW, head of production.
Cool.
So
Yeah,
a
definitely.
lot of information, but easy.
You definitely need the visual out. To the rulebook itself gives some visuals, but it's not overly clear. Doing this definitely helps.
Did you try reading it without the visual?
I was just reading this.
Hilarious.
Yeah, so I was like, what? And I was like, my brain is fried. Right?
You're like, I'm
I have
done.
no idea. Yeah, because now it's like, okay, this makes more sense.
Yeah.
To like looking at it. Okay, now we're going into the operations phase. So starts off with the strategic warfare segment. This segment abstracts submarine warfare and the Axis and Western strategic bombing campaigns. So first, determine the number of dice to roll for every faction. So for the Axis faction, the number of dice to roll is equal to the value of the strategic warfare marker in its track. Boom. The box where the technology marker is determines how many of those dice must be gray. The remaining dice, if any, must be, got those?
Yep.
Sorry. Must be white.
Okay, so in this case, this is on the 1, this is on the 0, so we would not use a gray die because it's on a 0, we would just use 1 white die.
Correctamundo. If the strategic warfare marker is in the 0 box, no dice of any type are rolled.
Then you're just screwed.
Yeah. So then the Western faction. Draw a combat card. Refer to the Western faction
My
table
Lord.
on. Yeah. It's one of those things where I was like, what?
This is cool, okay.
That is pretty cool, though. Refer to the Western faction table on the card and cross-reference the strategic warfare column with the current year's row. The result is the number of Western dice that will be rolled. Then place the card face up in the combat cards pile.
So in this case here on this card, so Western faction on top, it says 1939-1940. That is the year we're currently in. It has marker at the 2 spot. So strategic warfare is only at the 1. Do we move it to the 2?
No, you're purely looking at strategic warfare and going down to whatever the year is, and whatever that number is, that's how many dice you roll. So what's the number there, 2?
Oh, 2. Okay, yep.
So you roll
So
two
you
Western
roll, it'll be
dice.
2 dice. Defense, it says, is 3. Attack is at 2, which is the air command, which is already here.
Okay. So the head of production rolls the dice for the Axis and the Western factions. Check the results in table 2 in the player's aid. So it says compare the number of hits rolled by the Axis faction with the hits rolled by the Western faction.
Yep.
Then apply the results. So it says if both factions have rolled the same number of hits, I do, there's no effect.
Makes sense, because just tie.
Correct.
Yeah.
The Axis faction has rolled more hits than the Western faction. You're going to add 1 to the air/naval control value in the Western front box, if possible. So that is the Western front here would add 1. And then award 1 PP to the head of production.
Yep. So let's quickly call out what these sides mean.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, a blank on this die here is nothing. Also, the tank or the gunner here and the draw to the tank. Where's the tank? Oh, here. Here's the tank. So the tank on the gray die, the gunner here, and then there's a gunner on the gray die. Those all are no effect. So blank and the gunning chips.
I have to go over there.
Okay.
Oh.
Go for it.
Sorry.
Goodbye.
I'm going to cross back over in a second.
Ooh, what do you get?
Masking tape.
Masking tape. You making things?
Yeah, bitch.
Aggressive.
I know. Go on, Chloe. Good girl. I know you love your Steve.
Okay, so Blank side and the side with weaponry. There we go.
The
No
cannon.
effect.
It's a cannon.
Yeah, but then there's also the tank.
Oh,
That's also before I was like, where the tank was on the side only. So those are no effect. These are hits. So that counts as 1 hit per roll. These are draw and resolve 1 strategic event card. Maximum 2 strategic event cards per segment. So if you were to roll 2 dice and get both of them, you can do up to 2. So if you roll 3 dice and hit 3 times, you only get 2.
Interesting.
On these dice, the tank is no effect. The plane is 1 hit. The star is fun. The star, if the USA is not at war, no effect. If the USA is at war, 1 hit. So it's a bonus symbol when after Pearl Harbor, when the USA gets involved, that you can get. So we rolled this. So in this case, this is not a hit. This is not a hit. This is not a hit. It's a 0.
So tie.
And then it's a tie. And then this table here in the player aid shows it all.
Yeah, you have it on your section if you're looking to show it to them.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, it's a little glare. There we go. So this is table 2. It gives you all of those symbols I just went over.
Cool. And then, of course, the last possibility is the Western faction rolled more hits than the Axis faction. The head of production must distribute the hit difference between the strategic warfare and the air/naval control tracks in the Germany box. So distribute between those two, yeah.
And you're sliding them down.
Yep. For each hit assigned to one of those tracks, subtract 1 from its value.
Yep.
It gives an example, but we just went over the example, so we don't need to worry about that. And boom, more example. Good. All right.
There's
So
an example. Wow.
so just so you know, for that strategic warfare segment, the OKW can overrule decisions. So the only decision that would be made there, other than maybe what comes up in the event, would be the movement of those tokens.
Yes.
So
the after effect.
me being the head of production would be the one doing all this, but Steve being the OKW dude could say, no, we're not moving that down. We're moving this one down twice.
Yep. And then just FYI, on this card too, there's also a Soviet faction. So when the Soviets are no longer helping Germany in 1941 as well, those could come into play on however, and I'm sure that's probably going to go over that.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Next is on to the movement segment, another area that can be overridden by the OKW person. I'll just say ahead of time. The head of operations is responsible for the actions in this segment. There are 3 types of movement which are resolved as 3 successive steps. Using operational movement, armies may be moved within a front. Using strategic movement, armies may be moved from one front to another. Using air movement, air power may be transferred from one air naval control track to another. Stacking limits are enforced at the end of each movement step. If the stacking limit is exceeded in an area, redo the movement actions until the situation is corrected. The head of operations cannot move the last army out of an occupied area with a partisan activity symbol. Yes, that's that little fist, which you can kind of see there. So underneath the number, you'll see that fist.
So that has to have at least one person in Yugoslavia.
Yep.
And obviously Poland, yeah.
So operational movement. Operational movement allows players to move armies within a front. It is conducted from one front at a time. The head of operations activates one front and carries out all the actions in that front before activating the next front. A front cannot be activated twice in the same movement segment. The maximum number of armies that may be moved in a front is determined by the space occupied by the air naval control marker in that front's box. The head of operations may move armies from any area to another area in the same front with an axis control disk, even if the area is neutral. The origin and destination area need not be adjacent. Armies cannot be moved to or from areas with an isolated marker. You cannot move armies to bases. So it's move armies from any area to another area. Same front with an axis. Okay, so
this is saying you can move 2 armies.
Yep.
And these both have axis. Be like, boop.
Trying to find a good example here. So here's this one too here, right? So these all have axis. So you can move this satellite army from here just up to here. They don't have to be adjacent because there's an axis control marker there.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Additionally, the head of operations may move armies from one area in a front to an adjacent area in a different front with an axis control disk, even if the area is neutral. These movements count against the movement limit in the starting front. So this example here, again, this could go over to there because they are adjacent and there's an axis control marker there. That +1, I have no idea what that means. I assume that means it would cost 1 additional to do that movement. Yeah. Okay. Operational movement limitations. In a single operations phase, a maximum of 1 army per front can be moved to or from an area with a naval supply marker, which is this guy here. So maximum of 1 army. It said maximum, right? Yep. So you can only move 1 to or from this area down here. So does that mean you can move 1 out and 1 in?
No, max of 1 movement in total.
Says a single operation phase,
Either 1 in or 1 out.
a maximum of 1 army per front can be moved to or from, oh, not to and from. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Strategic movement. Strategic movement allows players to move armies, excuse me, from one front to a different front. Using strategic movement, the head of operations may move armies from any area in the map to the strategic movement space in the Germany box, and from the strategic movement space in the Germany box to any area in another front with an axis control disk, even if it is neutral. Armies cannot be moved to or from areas with an isolated marker. So same deal. Can't move to bases either. So, okay, so this is the strategic movement box right there. So you can move any into there, which will then allow you to move any out of there. Okay. The maximum number of strategic movement actions in any one operation phase is determined by the box occupied by the Air National Control Naval, Air Naval, not National,
Like,
control marker in the Germany box.
Yep, so 5.
Boom. An army may enter and exit the strategic movement space in the same operation phase, provided the maximum number of movements has not been exhausted. Armies may remain in the strategic movement space indefinitely, but they cannot participate in combat while they are there.
Makes sense.
Cool. So you can move it in, take it out, or you can put it there and leave it there. But they're just chilling. They're sleeping. Satellite armies can only satellite armies can only use strategic movement to move to areas in the Eastern Front. Satellite armies cannot use strategic movement to move to areas in the Western or Southern fronts. Interesting.
Okay.
So
you can move it. You can move it from here into here and then over here, but never anywhere else.
Yep. Okay. Air movement. Air movement allows the head of operations to redistribute Axis air power between the 4 air naval control tracks. In order to do so, the head of operations may move the air naval control marker in one track any number of boxes to the left. Then he must move another marker the same number of boxes to the right. The distance between tracks is irrelevant, and a marker may be moved multiple times. But an air naval control marker cannot be moved to the right unless another marker has been previously moved the same number of boxes to the left. The air naval control marker in the Germany box cannot be moved to the left in the movement segment. So you cannot move this in the movement segment, but you can move any of these to the left, and you can move any number of times. So if you wanted to get this guy up 3, you could drop him by 2, move it up by 2, drop this one by 1, move it up by 1.
Yep.
And there is no limit to that. You just can adjust those as needed as long as you have a way to adjust them elsewhere.
Sure.
So just balancing those scales however you see fit. All right. The command segment. And there's a big example on this page for the movement stuff, but I think it's pretty clear. I think we made it very clear by reading their rules. All right. Command segment. Generals may be appointed to 2 command positions. Head of Army Group, which is on the actual board, or OB. They give the actual name for it. Oberbefehlshaber. I don't know. No idea. Can you say that?
I don't know. Where is it? Nope.
Nope, he doesn't even try. So the OB, which is of the front. So those are those spots that aren't available right away.
No GYN here.
OB positions are not available until corresponding political directive card is played. Until then, these positions remain not available. The number of heads of army group may be appointed to an area depends on the number of German armies in that area. The satellites do not count as German armies because they're not. Areas with one German army, no heads of army group can be appointed. That's why all these that have one German army don't have any head of the army appointed. Areas with 2, 3, or 4 German armies, only one head of the army group can be appointed, or must be appointed. If there's 5, you need 2.
Why this one has 2.
Exactly.
So that's how we get our generals on the board.
Correct, by putting armies in the spaces
then,
to get those out.
Okay, makes sense.
When the second German army enters an area, place a vacancy marker in the first AG head box in the area. Yep. When the oh, that was my computer. I was gonna make sure it wasn't mine.
I heard it over there.
Yeah, it was my work
Oh.
computer. Yeah. When the 5th German army is deployed in or moved to an area, place a vacancy marker in the second AG box in the area. So if this guy wasn't there, we would have one there as well. Okay? Whenever the number of generals in an area exceeds the legal number, immediately move any excess general markers in AG head boxes to the general markers box in the controlling player's player board. Lowest seniority first. So when the number of okay. So like if this dropped down to 4,
then we would remove the lowest
you
seniority.
would move the lowest seniority first. Like this 9 would come out and go back to whoever owns it.
Yep, that makes sense.
Got it. Okay. And move their general card from the in command general's deck on your board to the available general space on your board. At the beginning of the command segment, players check that all areas conform to the command limits set above. Place vacancy markers in empty AG head boxes that should have a general and remove excess general markers, lowest seniority first. The head of personnel breaks all ties. So that is you. You're head of personnel, right?
Yep.
Okay.
It's the only decision I'm going to make in all of these as head of personnel is that one.
Yeah. Oh, the OKW changes everything else.
Oh, I know.
So, you know.
This guy's useless.
Once all areas conform to the command limits, player roll for dismissals to check if questioned generals are dismissed or they stay in their positions. Then new generals are appointed to fill in vacancies in command positions. Ooh, now we're getting into the dirty. Dismissals. A dismissal roll must be resolved for every general in the game whose marker shows the questioned side. The head of personnel decides the order for these rolls.
Yep. So you flip it upside down. If you get a card, and I don't know, I think there are event cards or whatnot that says, "Hey, you've been questioned," or certain things happen, like you'll flip it to the question side, and and then during this phase, head of personnel gets to make some decisions.
Finally, for you. So in the dismissal roll, the player controlling the general rolls 1d6 and compares the results with the general's confidence factors. So we're going closer to those confidence factors. The result, so if the result is lower than the general's confidence factor,
Which is the 2, the red number.
the general stays in his position. Flip his marker to its regular side. If the general's marker has a dissident marker on it, it remains in place. So the dissident marker would stay there. If the result is equal to the general's confidence factor, and if the general belongs to the dissident interest group, or there is a dissident marker on the general's marker, he is dismissed. So see next bullet point for dismissed. So otherwise, the general becomes dissident. So if he's already dissident and you rolled equal to it, he's dismissed. If he's not currently dissident, he becomes dissident.
Okay.
Then you add 1 to the unrest value, and the general's owning player draws a black orchestra card and places it face down on the black orchestra card space on his board. The number of dissident markers is an absolute limit. So if there are no more dissident markers, the general's just
The black orchestra card is literally like a
dismissed. It's a target of Hitler.
scope on
Yeah.
on Hitler. I'm not going to look at this card because I really don't want to know what these do yet.
Yeah.
Until we play.
And those are one of those cards that remain secret and only the player who has it knows what it is.
Yeah, it's the only way for you to go against your pathway as a German general and go like be Albert Einstein, go work for the Allies.
Yeah. Just to recover that again. So if your role is equal, if your general is dissident, then they're just dismissed. If they are not dissident, they become dissident. You're going to add 1 to the unrest value, and then the owning general, the person who owns the general, takes a black orchestra card.
Yep.
And then if there are no more dissident markers on the board and someone has to become dissident, they're just dismissed. All right. So if the result is higher than the general's confidence factor, the general is just straight up dismissed. It's too cocky. Remove his marker and card from the game. Place a vacancy marker in the AG head or OB head box where the marker was. Add 1 to the unrest value, and the general's owning player draws a black orchestra card and places it face down in the black orchestra spot. If the general's marker had a dissonant marker on it, return the dissonant marker to the box on the game board. The marker is available for use again. Then it goes through examples. Again, pretty straightforward for that.
I got the best general here. He's at 6.
Nice.
You're like, I ain't never leaving.
Well, you could roll equal to 6.
Sure.
If he's already dissonant, then he's
83.6% of the time I'm rolling less.
booted. 5 of 7. Kidding.
You'd roll a 7 somehow. On a 6-sided
So I
die.
would roll an 8. What? Appointments. After all dismissal rolls are made, players must fill any command positions with a vacancy marker on the map. Fill the vacancies in the order decided by the head of personnel. In order to fill a vacancy, players must nominate any one of their generals, but only one, regardless of the space where they are on the board, available, activated, or in command. So it means if someone's already out here somewhere else, you can say, yo, I want them to be over here now.
Yeah.
Any player may start by nominating one of his generals as a candidate. I like how this entire rulebook is just his. So the other people who are playing this game are messed up dudes. Any player may start by nominating one of his generals as a candidate for the position. Once a player has nominated a general, the remaining player may pass or nominate their own candidates in any order. But the seniority factor of any new candidate must be equal to or higher than the seniority factor of the previous candidate. Interesting.
So if I nominate this guy right here, you can only nominate someone who has a higher seniority factor.
Yep. Yeah. Cool. If there is only one candidate, appoint that general to the position. If there's more than one candidate, appoint the general with the highest seniority factor. The head of personnel resolves any ties, and he may appoint his own candidate provided he is in the tie. If no generals are nominated for the position, the head of personnel must designate one player with at least one eligible general, and this player must appoint one of his eligible generals to the position.
Nice.
It does say here that some players prefer to use the variant procedure in 13.5 to nominate generals for position. That might be worth checking out for us.
We'll find out when we get there.
For the first game. I'm just letting you know. Because that, I don't know. It's kind of nice the personnel having that power, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Just want to take that power away from you. When a general is appointed to the position, move his card to the available general space in the player board to the in-command general space, and place his marker in the box where the vacancy marker was. Remove the vacancy marker from the map, return the candidate's cards to the original spaces. If the general already in the in-command general space is appointed to a new position, place the vacancy marker in the previous AG head or OG head box. This vacancy must now be filled in the current command segment.
Yeah.
So pretty much in the command segment, you have to fill all vacancies. Period.
Makes
you have
sense.
no choice whatsoever. It says important. Once all vacancy markers have been removed on the map, the head of personnel may replace one general marker in an AG head or OG box with the marker of one of his generals with a higher seniority factor. The new commanding general may come from any head personnel spaces. His card is moved to the in-command deck on the player's board, is replaced with marker. So essentially, once everything's out there, the head of personnel can choose to make one more swap.
Yeah.
The head of OKW cannot override appointments. The command segment ends once all vacancy markers have been removed. The map then proceeds to the Axis Offense segment. 4.4. Axis Offensive segment. This is a little offensive, so bear with us.
I want to play defense.
Couldn't help myself. You're going to play defense. If there is not an active military directive card, which is over here. Which
There was one.
There should be.
Oh
you see.
no, there might not be because it might have been done
Boom.
in the
Exactly.
administrative phase.
So
So like,
they
we
may
can
not
act like this was already completed because I purchased or whoever purchased it.
So if there's not an active military directive card, skip this segment and proceed to the Western offensive segment. If there is an active military directive card, place land or amphibious combat pawns on the board and then resolve combat.
We play some lizards and
I know.
know.
They're using amphibious to mean that it moves through
Water.
water, which is probably the technical definition.
is.
But it makes you think of amphibian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have a gecko swimming around.
Axis combat pawns identify the areas where combat will be resolved during the operation phase. The pawn symbols in the military directive card indicate the number and type of Axis combat pawns, which are available in every operations phase while it is active. So for the black, 1 Axis land combat pawn for each of the black symbols. If it's blue, it's 1 Axis amphibious combat pawn. And there's only one of those amphibian pawns. The head of OKW may place Axis combat pawns in any of the areas listed in the card after the pawns, after the symbols. What? The head of the OKW may place Axis combat pawns in any of the areas listed in the event card after. Oh, okay. So it lists on here where they would go.
Yeah, so that one would go in area 1.
Got it.
So this would come into Poland.
Each area must meet one of these following requirements. It has a disputed marker in its alignment box, or it is controlled by an allied faction and is adjacent to an area controlled by the Axis.
Okay.
Cool. So like you could put it here because this is controlled by the Axis, right?
Yeah.
Amphibious
You
combat.
can't put it like over here because there's no other control.
Yeah. Amphibious combat pawns may be placed in areas connected by an amphibious line. So there's like blue lines on here. Okay. Only 1 combat pawn can be placed in any single area. Important. It is not obligatory to place all Axis combat pawns on the map. But if the head of OKW does not place at least 1 combat pawn, he must subtract 1 from the Fanaticism value and then discard the active military directive card. Okay? Essentially, the hype is going down because you chose not to fight.
Yeah.
Conduct land combat in every area with an Axis land combat pawn, the black ones. Conduct amphibious combat in every area with an Axis amphibious combat pawn, the blue one. Resolve combats 1 by 1 in the order designated by the head of operations. Once combat has been resolved in an area, remove the Axis combat pawn from the area. When there are no Axis combat pawns left on the map, proceed to the Western offensive segment. Okay, so it continues on to the Western offensive segment. If there are no Western offensive marker in the operations box of the current turn, remove it. And, if there is so this is specifically a marker. If there is a no Western offensive marker, so it's a marker that says no Western offensive. If that is in the operations box of the current turn, which one's the operations box?
This whole long thing. So it's that.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Then remove it and skip this segment. Then proceed to the Soviet offensive segment.
So yeah, if there's a marker there that tells you not to do it, don't do it.
Yeah. It's this guy, one of those over there, right?
It probably.
That blue
Oh
one
yeah,
there?
there it is. Yep, it's that
Yeah.
one. There we go.
In any other case, check whether a Western landing takes place. Then resolve combat 1 by 1. All right, Western landings. Resolve landings only if both of the following conditions apply. Otherwise, skip the step and proceed to combat. There is at least 1 landing marker in the landing markers box. This is only possible from 1942 onwards. Okay. And if the current season is not winter. So you have to have both of those to do the landing step. If both conditions above apply, draw a combat card. Cross-reference the seasons column and the current year's row in the landing table of the card. The resulting box indicates if the landing may occur. So again, the year will only be 1942 forward.
Yep, and the card shows that only.
So if it is fall or autumn, as the sophisticated say, a landing must be resolved only if the current season is fall. Summer, fall, landing must be resolved if it's summer or fall. Landing means a landing must be resolved regardless of the current season, as long as it's not winter, because it never happens in winter.
Yep.
If no landing has to be resolved, proceed to combat. If a landing must be resolved, cross-reference the priority column and the current year's row in the landings table to determine the area where it occurs. The resulting box lists all areas where a landing may happen. A landing is allowed if the area is neutral or has an occupied or satellite marker.
Yep. So yeah, so this just easily goes through. It says the year, it says the season, which Nick just went over, and then it says priorities, 4 or 5 on this card, for example. And you just go left to right to each of those, and if they meet the criteria, they do a landing.
Yep. So check the first area listed in the box. If a landing is not allowed in that area, check the next area in the card in the priority order. Repeat this process until a landing is allowed. If a landing is not allowed in any of the areas in the card, place the combat card face up in the used combat cards pile and proceed to combat. If a landing is allowed in the area, follow these steps. If it is a home area belonging to a neutral country, activate that country as an Axis satellite.
So just like we did with Italy, but that was with a card, this would be doing the same thing.
Oh, occupied.
Yeah.
Those are Axis satellites right now.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. If only one, that's exactly what you were saying. If only one sector in the area has a landing threat symbol, which I think are those purple guys, place a Western control disk in it. If more than one sector in the area has a landing threat symbol, the head of operations rolls 1d6 and places a Western control disk in the sector indicated by the result. Okay, so it says 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6. Cool. Move the Axis control disk in the area to the sector with the next lower number, if possible.
Oh, yeah. So if you roll a 5, because there's already a disc there, it would just go down.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So the next disc, yeah.
I was like, so I get this, just goes down to 1.
Mhm.
Got it. If a Western control disk was placed in a sector 1 of the area, place a Western alignment marker in the area's alignment box. Otherwise, place a disputed marker there. It's
Yep.
like how we have all those Western ones right now. Move one landing marker from the landing markers box to the sector where the Western control disk was placed in the previous step. So this guy, the one landing marker.
Yep.
So you're going to move that to where the Western control disk was placed in the previous step. So if it was placed here, it's going to go there,
I would assume so.
I guess. Place no Western offensive marker in the area where the landing has occurred. So that's where you then put the no Western down. Okay. Yes. Yes. Yes, that is all correct how we assumed it. All right.
Soviet.
Combat.
Oh.
Place one allied combat pawn in any area that meets either of the following conditions. The area contains a disputed marker and a Western control disk. So,
Which is this one?
disputed
Poland.
Western, yep.
An allied marker.
Yep. An allied combat pawn.
Boop. So in this case, we put both out. So we put that out during the Axis offensive, this in the Western offensive.
The area contains a disputed marker and a West. Oh, said that already. The area is controlled by the Axis and adjacent to an area controlled by the Western faction was the second
So the
one.
same thing.
Mm-hmm. So an exception: do not place an allied combat pawn in any area with a no Western offensive marker.
Oh, of course.
Got it. Only, and this is part of the Western still, so we're still like blue technically. The Soviet might be different for whatever reason. Only one combat pawn can be placed in any single area. Okay, so that wouldn't happen then.
Yep. I was waiting for that. I was like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Resolve land combat in every area with an allied combat
Oh.
pawn.
Now we can put more out.
America.
Where's the allied side? I'm like, why is there 1 and 4 Soviets on the other side?
Nice, got it.
Because Soviets start fighting for the Allies after they break their pact with Germany.
Nice.
So there's going to be a point in this game then where USSR joins, and you're going to have the Soviet side of things where they can fight, and then Germany, being Germany, stabs them in the back, and then they become allies. come fight for ours.
Germany being what Germany was. It's not offending anybody now. We're talking about offensive, but no. So resolve the land combat in every area with an allied combat pawn. Resolve combats one by one in the order designated by the head of operations. So head of operations gets to choose.
Yep.
Once combat has been resolved in an area, remove the allied combat pawn from that area. When there are no allied combat pawns left on the map, remove all no Western offensive markers from the map and proceed to the Soviet offensive segment. Yeah, so we resolved all the combats at the end of the offensive segment, right? Before moving on to the Western. Yeah, resolve combats one by one. So
Yeah.
we would have already resolved that one.
Yeah. So then this could go down here if this.
Exactly. Yep. Okay. So over to the Soviet combat, and then it'll be on to the your phase field.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Soviet offensive segment. I'm trying to fix anything. No. Yeah. Skip the segment and proceed to the end segment if the USSR commitment marker is not in the war box in its track.
Which it is not, because it's Nazi Soviet pact.
Way up there.
But we're going to read it anyway.
Otherwise, resolve the Soviet offensive segment. If the USSR commitment marker is in the war box in its track, place one Allied combat pawn in any area in the Eastern Front that meets any of the following conditions. Number 1, the area contains a disputed marker and a Soviet control disk. Number 2, the area is controlled by the Axis and adjacent to an area controlled by the Soviet faction.
Like that.
Areas controlled.
The Soviets were here, next to the Axis. Boop.
Yep. Or number 3, the area is neutral and adjacent to an area controlled by the Soviet faction. Activate the country immediately as an Axis satellite. Exception. Do not place an Allied combat pawn in any area with no Soviet defensive marker. Only one combat pawn can be placed in any single area. Same.
Yep.
Resolve land combat in every area. The Allied combat pawn. Resolve combats in order. Designated head of operations. Once combat pawn has been resolved in the area, remove the Allied combat pawn in the area. There are no combat pawn areas left on the map. And no Soviet offensives. So same thing as the Western. End segment. In this segment, if there is an active military directive card, its objectives are assessed. Then supply is checked, and players determine whether the game ends per the scenario rules, or if the conditions for automatic victory or the collapse of Germany are met. Military directive objectives check. Ignore this step if there is no military directive card. If there is an active military directive card, check whether its objectives have been achieved. If the objective includes one or several sectors, the objectives have been achieved if all sectors are under Axis control.
Yep.
What's
So for example, this one, which is going to be a failure. So this is invasion of Poland. Prerequisite or the objective is Warsaw Axis controlled. Warsaw is not. It's currently Allied controlled. So this would be a fail.
I assume war is how you end up removing those tokens to be able to take them over.
Or combat, I'm assuming.
Oh, sorry, combat.
You know,
Or war.
well, sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like that.
Yeah. Okay, so if all objectives in the active military directive card have been achieved, apply the effects in the success box, as explained in sections A to D below. Then discard the military objectives card.
And like this here, the success is you get 1 to the woodmark replacements, so that'll go up by 1. Then you get PP for the AGs located in that area. OKW would get a +1. OPS would get a +2. So that is
Operations, I assume. OPS? Operations, right? Ops?
Ops or operations, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Fancy Madancy over there would get +1.
Yeah. Fanaticism. Phantasm. If not all objectives in the military directive card have been achieved, and this is not the last operation phase of the turn, there is no effect. Proceed to the supply check. If not all the objectives in the active military directive card have been achieved, and this is the last operation phase of the turn, flip to their question side the markers of all AG heads in the areas listed in the military directive card.
So that's, I think, a question. So that means these
after,
two.
So the place is after the symbols.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
after that marker symbol.
Oh, yeah, that's what Warsaw is, yep.
And the AG heads that have participated in the combat generated by the card. So everyone's getting flipped who says you participated or it's in that area.
Yeah.
Discard the military directive card if it is not recyclable. Which that one is not. That one is recyclable. Shows a recycling symbol. If it is recyclable, the card remains available to the rest of the year.
Okay, yeah.
These are the effects of success in a military directive card. So, A says area name, occupied. Remove all allied control disk and the alignment marker in the area. Move the axis control disk in the area to the highest numbered sector, if not already there. Place an occupied alignment marker in the area's alignment box, if not already there. If the area has the mining cart symbol, add 1 to the resources value in its track if it was not added previously. Effects of success in a military directive card. Oh, this is just going over the possible.
Yeah, all the things that could happen.
So then France surrenders. So remove the Western control disk and the Western dispute alignment markers in Holland. Move access control disks. Place occupied alignments. Add 1 resource to value tracks. Flip France over. Other effects may include increasing, decreasing staff, prestige, yada yada. It'll say on the card what it does. So then supply check. First check whether the ports controlled by the axis are open or closed to the axis. The head of operations rolls 1d6 for every area with a port box controlled by the axis, adding or subtracting the following modifiers. So in North Africa and Libya, plus the current air naval controlled value in the southern front box, plus 1 for every base controlled by the axis, plus 2 if Egypt is controlled by the axis, minus 4 if southern Italy is not controlled by the axis. I assume that's in the player raid.
No, of course
No?
not.
Supply check's not in there?
The supply check is, but it doesn't give you all those numbers you just gave me.
No way.
What thing's in my hand?
What? That's insane.
It says supply check. Go to 4.7.2 in the rulebook.
Hilarious.
So this player aid, and Nick and I judge these because I love player aids.
If they're good.
Yeah. So all these player aids we're doing is kind of saying that in this section of the turn, you're going to do this, but to get information about how to do it, go to the rulebook.
So what's the point of the player?
That's true. We have a table. There's one table.
Just put an index in the back.
There's no index on the back.
No, of the book.
I-
For Great Britain, it says plus the current air naval control value in the Western Front.
They
or
put
minus
all of
4
the
if
agenda
none
cards.
or if none of France is in the. It doesn't say on here either. Or is that Northern Africa and Libya?
So Libya's down there. That's the port
And
down
he
there.
said Northern Africa, yeah. So yeah, does not say. Wow, hilarious. Interesting. All right. The modifier result is 7 or higher. The port is open. Flip its port marker to its open side if it does not show it already. If the modifier result is 6 or lower, the port is closed. Flip its port marker to the closed side if it does not show already. So there's only those 3 areas that have modifiers to them.
Okay.
So I don't know why they wouldn't put those in the player rating.
I don't know.
All right, last little section here. Then check whether all areas in the axis control disk are supplied. An area is supplied if it has land supply or naval supply, like we have down here in Libya. If an area has neither, it is isolated. So that's how it becomes isolated.
Okay.
An area has land supply if a continuous string of adjacent areas with an axis-controlled disk can be established, connecting it to an area with a Festung sector.
Same
So,
as successors.
successors with its generals.
Yeah.
Except the general here is just the Festung sector.
Yeah, so that's just a tie up to be like, oh yeah, these all connect. Du-du-du-du.
Okay, yeah, so just to an area with a Festung sector.
Yeah,
You don't have to have the access disk in the Festung sector specifically. I was making sure.
Oh,
That doesn't have to be there. It just has to be in a spot where there is an access control disk. Okay? Jason. Yeah. All right. An area has naval supply if it has an open port marker and a continuous string of adjacent areas controlled by the axis established to an area with an open port marker. place a naval supply marker in the Army's box of any area that have naval supply. So an area has naval supply that has an open port marker, okay, like this guy, or a continuous string of adjacent areas controlled by the Axis can be established to an area with an open port marker. Got it? Place a naval supply marker in the Army's box of any areas that only have naval supply. Okay, so if it has land supply, you wouldn't put the naval supply down. If it only has naval supply, then that's where you put it down. Place an isolated marker, which is one of these little tokens here, in an Army's box of any areas without land or naval supply. Remove isolated markers from areas that are now found to have land or naval supply. If an area with a cart symbol becomes isolated, subtract 1 from the resource value in its track. If an area with a cart symbol ceases to be isolated, add 1 to the resource value in its track. All right, then victory check before the New Year phase. Check for automatic victory and the collapse of Germany. The game ends and the player with the highest PP score wins if an automatic victory. If he has at least 20 PPs or more than the player with the lowest PP score. Jesus. The PPs in the agenda cards are not awarded in this case. Wow. So automatic victory is if somebody ends up with 20 more points, they're just like, yeah, you win.
Oh, on the track?
Yeah, that's automatic victory. Yep.
Oh, that's boring.
The PPs in the agenda cards are not awarded in this case. Cool. So the game does not end in an automatic victory. Check if Germany collapses. So Germany collapses if there are 2 control discs or fewer in the collapse of Germany box. There is no effect. If there are 3 Axis control discs in more in the collapse of Germany box, the head of the OKW must roll 1d6. If the result is higher than the number of Axis control discs in the collapse of Germany, there is no effect. If the result is equal to or lower than the number of Axis control discs in the collapse of Germany box, the game ends. Determine victory per rules of Section 11.
We're never on the Nick roll.
Yeah, so that could, once 1 is in there,
It says
it could be
equal
done.
to or lower.
Yeah, so if the game does not end with automatic victory, okay, check if Germany collapses. If there are 2 control discs or fewer in the collapse of Germany box, there is no effect. Okay,
so it has to be until there's 3.
So yeah, so once there's 3, that's
Then
when you
you
start
roll.
doing this.
Okay.
Thank God.
Yeah.
This is going to be done in 10 minutes.
Well, how did disc go in there? Probably things go wrong to put disc in.
I assume it'll probably tell us, yeah.
So in 1939, you're not going to have
Right.
disc go in there.
So
yet.
once there's 3 in there, then we have to do a skill check essentially
Yes.
to see if haunt starts.
Yeah. And it's not a haunt, it's just death.
Yeah, I know.
It's just over.
Okay.
Oh, there's 2 dice this whole time?
Yeah. After checking for automatic victory in the collapse of Germany, the game ends and the scenario instructs you so. In that case, determine victory per the scenario's instructions after this check. Otherwise, advance the turn marker per 4.7.4. Turn marker. If the game continues, advance the turn marker to the following box and resolve the next administrative and operational phase. If the current season is fall or autumn, as some like to say, and the turn marker is in the operations box, move it to the new year box at the beginning of the turn track and move the year marker to the following year's box, then resolve the new year phase.
Yeah.
So
that's right here. So
damn.
it shows here we're starting the administrative phase here because World War II starts on September 3rd, 1939. So we're already in fall. So we finish fall off, and then we'll move into 1940. In 1940, it'll go through all of the seasons until you get here again.
Yep.
So year 1 is going to go very quickly, and that's why there's not that many cards out for grabs over here.
Mhm.
But then it will take longer and longer to get through the rest of the years. That's why this game will take so long.
Yep. All right.
Just an FYI, I was glancing at this when Nick was reading. We're not going to do this, but this is just facts for people.
Ooh, excuse me.
There is a campaign mode. So what we're going to do is actually competitive war start to war end. So we're playing the whole war competitively. You can do a campaign.
Provided Germany doesn't collapse before the end of the war.
True. You can do a campaign co-op or competitively
Mhm.
where you do 4 different playthroughs. So you do like 1939, the first chunk, figure out where you're at, you mark those numbers down, and then you like on a different occasion set up again and start somewhere else. So it goes through the sections of the scenarios to do, and you just like see who has the most points at the end of all of that.
Got it.
So if you don't have time, like we're going to commit like 10 hours to this. If
Yeah.
you don't have that to commit, you can do like mini pieces and then total up for the winner.
Yep.
But all right, here we go.
All
So we have
right.
now gone through the 2 sets of phases. We now get to end of year and we have to start a new year. So this is what happens. So new year phase. In this phase, some adjustments are made. So first, you're going to award prestige. So award PP to the heads of sections according to their section cards. So each of our cards have little things that'll give some information. Then award PP to each player for the command positions of the generals they control. Each general card in the general in command box, you get 2. Each general card in the activated generals box, you get 1. Move all general cards in the activated generals spaces to the available. So they're all going to slide back left to be available again. You're going to return any unused directive cards. So all of these would then get returned because that year is now over. Event cards. Reveal any remaining cards from the previous year. One by one. For every card, resolve recurring events. So ignore any non-obligatory unique events. It says without a blue background. And reoccurring events that have a skull and crossbones and a insert symbol here. Discard all revealed event cards afterwards. Then shuffle the current year's events out of the 2 event decks and create the new deck.
Okay, so this is the actual event. What's it say there?
Current.
That's the current event.
Current year. No, that's the current year.
Oh, it's the
pile.
current year. Okay, cool. So this is the whole deck of
It's all
cards
years.
goes there. But so for like 1940, we would shuffle all the 1940s, and then that would go itself, so that'd be gone, and that would go there.
Yep.
Got it.
Additionally, if there is a landing marker in the current year box, move the landing marker, and this is 42 and 44, move it to the board. So there's a landing markers box.
Right there.
Somewhere. Yep, okay, there we go. We put it right into that box. Then move any landing markers in areas on the map to that box. So if these were out on the map somewhere, they would also come to this box. All right. Section card. Players keep their section cards for a whole year, and then they are redistributed in this segment. So priority markers. Distribute the priority markers in reverse order to the players with the lowest PP. So that is these priority markers over here. So we'd only be using numbers 1 and 2. Whoever's the lowest PP will get number 1, and so on. So the first player, the player with the lowest will get 1 first player. Yep. Okay. Current head of OKW would break any ties, so they would get to decide.
So you obviously choose to go first.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
True.
We don't know exactly how combat works yet.
True.
Choosing section cards. The procedure for choosing section cards is different before and after the reorganization of High Command. So before the reorganization of High Command, again, that takes place in 1942.
Yep. On the gray side.
Yeah, so during the pre-phase of this, all players return their current section card. The player with the first player takes all 4, chooses 1, passes the remaining 3 to the second player, who chooses 1. Third player gets, and so on.
Yep.
In a 2-player game, the first player takes turns choosing until all 4 seeds go back and forth.
Yep. Makes sense.
So they do get redistributed.
Cool. That's good.
Yeah. Because if you're OKW the whole time, you're like, okay, I'm pretty stacked.
Yeah. Cool.
New generals. So, again,
New generals.
distribute priority markers. The head of personnel automatically gets priority 1, and then it goes from there. So one of us will always be head of personnel, and then the other one will be priority 2. all general cards whose entry year matches the current year or any previous year are eligible in this segment.
Okay.
General cards are chosen successive rounds. In every round, players pass along all eligible generals, and every player chooses a card.
Mm.
In the odd number rounds, rounds 1, 3, etc., thank you for clarifying what odd meant, the order is that of priority markers from first to last.
Mm-hmm.
In even rounds, it goes the opposite of snake format, using fantasy football terms.
So odd, it's going one.
So it goes one, this, and this goes...
Yeah,
Yeah,
then
it's-
even it goes high, low. Odd goes low, high, then even goes high, low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. Yeah, yeah. This segment ends when all generals have been distributed or all players have passed. If all players have passed, any remaining generals are added to those entering play the following year. So they would just go off to the side because, as we read earlier, it's on the board,
15.
we can only have 15 generals. So when you get to years 1942, 43, 44, 5, you're going to have a lot to choose from.
Mm.
So you only want to choose the ones that are useful.
Mm.
When a player has reached their max, he must pass or discard one of his cards before choosing a new one. If a player passes, he may not choose another card later in the segment. Discarding general cards and their markers are then removed from play.
Okay.
If a discarded general had a position, place a vacancy marker on the box and add one to the unrest. So, for example, we have the Vons out here. So, Von Bach, if a Von Bach sitting right here were not to be chosen between Nick and I, that would become a vacancy space and unrest would go up by 1 because he's just been yeeted out of the playfield.
Yep.
On a 2-player game, starting with the player with the first player marker, go pretty much it says until both have passed or until all have been distributed or both players pass after they have 15 generals.
Okay.
Then it shows your game board. So again, just like our game board's already set up, place your markers down, place the generals in the available section, markers go there. Cool.
Yep.
Next, planning segment. In this segment, the head of the OKW, who is someone new now because we've now gone through that part of the segment, and the head of production select directive cards from their decks and place them next to the board, face up.
Okay.
Players may examine these cards at any point. These are the available directives for that year. All undiscarded directive cards belonging to the current and previous years are also eligible. And you obviously have a certain amount of slots available only. So if you did none of these production directives, you can gain only one more to play out.
Oh, so it says you can like have 4 out?
Yeah, as long as spots.
Well, I wonder if it...
No, it says it here. Yeah.
Oh, it does say
Yeah,
that.
it
Okay.
It says a directive card may be selected even if its prerequisites are not met at the time of selection, since then they could be met during that year. And yeah, the slots here, so 5, 4, 4 are the maxes.
Who chooses the directives?
It just said here. Head of OKW and head of production select directive cards from their decks.
Okay, that's what I was assuming. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, so OKW gets these 2, production gets this.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so then we move into combat,
What the hell is this?
the active military directive.
Oh, that's the active one.
Yeah,
So it's an active.
because that would stay out. Yeah,
God, I was like, why do we have any deck there?
Yeah.
Tripped me.
yeah.
Sorry.
Let me look at some real quick to see if this makes more sense. Yeah, it does. Okay. I'm going to flip to
Good.
events and then go to combat last,
Okay,
since combat's a little hefty.
cool.
Uh,
Go for it.
that's more your vibe anyway.
Combat?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, next up we're going to go to events.
Okay.
So events are all these event cards. So, nope, just kidding. Can't do that. Not allowed. We're going to combat.
Do it up.
Just kidding. All right, here we go. Combat.
You got this.
When resolving combat during the Axis combat segment, the Axis faction is the attacker. The allies are the defender. That's pretty obvious.
Straight up.
During Western, guess what? The Western's the attacker, and the Axis is the defender. During combat with the Soviets, Soviet is the attacker. The Axis is the defender. The combat area is the area where the combat pawn is located. So when this is tilted, here in Poland,
Tilted.
that would be the combat area.
Yep.
Combat takes place in the sector with an allied control disk, if the Axis is the attacker. If the Axis is the defender, combat takes place in a sector with an Axis control disk. So this is black, therefore it would attack one of these two. So this is where, knowing the request over here is to get rid of Warsaw, we would want to attack Warsaw.
Cool.
So, in undefended areas, if an area with an allied combat pawn does not have any Axis armies, apply 3 Axis retreats starting in that area. If there, and it'll go over what that means shortly. If there is a general marker in the OB head box, flip it to the question side.
It's like if there's no access there, he immediately flips to the question.
Yep.
Got
it. To resolve a land combat, you will go through these 6 steps. Draw and reveal 1 combat card.
Okay, this is the same one.
Sure. Activate the generals that will participate in combat.
Okay.
The allies will then roll the dice. The Axis will roll the dice. You will resolve the event, and then implement the combat results.
Okay.
So combat card. We see it right in front of us. You have the Western faction on top, Soviet faction in the middle. The Allied attacks are on the right-hand column of both of those sections. So, excuse me. It says, if the Allied faction is the defender, cross-reference the current year with the defense column.
So, right now, it'd be 3.
Yep. If the Allied faction is the attacker, go to the attack column.
Got it. So, it would be 2, and whatever the die means. I guess that means for...
The aerial.
Yeah.
Probably. We'll find out right now.
Yep.
Resolve combat if the attacker is an Allied faction, and the result in the attack column includes a number. The number indicates how many dice are rolled.
Okay.
If the attacker is an Allied faction, and the result in the attack column has the symbol dash, so some of these might just only have a symbol, just not that card, or does not include a number, there is no combat.
Okay. So we have, like this one has in the top,
they have here.
it has the drawing a card event. This one is a lot of just drawing
that's
cards.
too soon.
Nice.
That is too soon.
What?
The example is Soviet factor if you do the Ukraine card.
Oh no.
It's like they knew it. It's
no.
So the card tells you pretty much attacking column, defending column, how many dice you get. Activating generals. The activated head of the AG and leading general may affect combat. Kesselring, number 25, and von Manstein, number 19, so each of our generals have a number in the bottom corner, may affect combat when in command of OB South and OB East, respectively. So if those generals are in the South or the Eastern Front OB spots, they may also affect it. Other than them two, you have to be the head of the army group, which is the AG spots in that area, and a leading general potentially could affect as well.
So wait, one more time on that?
So there's 2 people that if they're in these OB boxes, they could affect combat.
Okay.
But other than those 2, they have to be...
Probably says in their card then.
Probably.
Okay.
So head of an AG. So if you activate the head of an army group with the highest seniority, the head of operations resolves any ties. If the area with the Axis combat pawn is controlled by the Allies, select an adjacent area with at least 1 Axis army which has not engaged in combat in the current operations phase. If it is an amphibious combat pawn, select an area connected by the amphibious line, so the waterways. If more than 1 area is available, the head of operations chooses one of them. Head of operations resolves any ties. So it gives you an example here. It says, if there's no army group in combat area Ukraine, the head of operations decides to activate von Rundstedt's army group, which is happen to be in Hungary. So Hungary here, Ukraine here. So let's say there was an AG here, one of the generals. There you go. That head of operations can say, hey, I want to use this head of operations over here. As long as he has not participated in combat yet, it says.
Gotcha.
Because there could be multiple of those markers out.
Gotcha. It's like if the combat directive allowed us to put a pawn there, he could.
Well, I guess here still works.
I guess, yeah. So he could participate in the combat there in addition to those guys who are already there, I assume?
It said... No, if it's controlled by allies. So it's controlled by I guess
So
it could be
so-
here in theory.
So it'd have to be like a spot like this here.
And like if
And
he was here.
Well, this guy right here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So like if it was this situation,
Yes.
then he could attack there.
Yes. As long as he didn't already attack this phase.
Got it.
Leading general. So that was for the head of the army group, so those spots. Leading general. If there's at least one German army participating in combat, a leading general must be activated. So that's your stack of cards.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to move a general into the activated generals.
Got it.
Each player may nominate one eligible candidate from the available general spaces on his player board. The nominated general's seniority factor must be lower than the activated head of army. So if it only contains satellite armies, do not activate a leading general.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's one of these main ones out here, you would activate a leading general.
So these guys are in command right now. That's why originally they were over here in the in command section.
Yes.
So that just said to take somebody from the available generals and to activate them. So you're activating a general who's not on the board with them.
Correct. If there's at least one German army participating in combat,
Mm-hmm.
a leading general must be activated.
Okay. And that has to come from the available, not the ones that are in command, which I think you said earlier, you can't move the
Yeah.
ones in command to activate it for leading. Okay.
Any player may start by nominating a general. Once a player is nominated a candidate, the remainder players will nominate. So that goes through just, you nominate back and forth. If only one general is nominated, he's the chosen general. If none are nominated, the head of personnel will designate.
Okay, so it's just like trying to fill in the vacancy spots then. We're all trying to activate the general that we want to be the leading general for that from our current available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Move the leading general's card to the activated space.
Right.
Leave the general's marker in its space on the player board.
Okay.
The other candidate cards remain in the available general. So we both nominate one, only the winning one moves over.
Got it.
The head of the OKW cannot overrule this decision.
Okay.
So that is activating the generals to, like, these would be modifiers most likely, I'm assuming.
Right.
So combat rolls. So allied combat roll. The results in the combat card may include special effects, which will be resolved before the combat roll itself. On its own or separated by a number of allied combat dice by the dash symbol. Okay. So special effects, if you had that other card with the other symbol, the Ukraine card, will be all of the other symbols, or actually it's these two. So the airplanes are also special effects.
Okay.
So for example, with the airplane...
Let's do this because there's other ones on
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. So the airplane, the green airplane, says roll one Western combat die for each airplane symbol. Subtract 1 from the air naval control value in that front for each blue plane on the die. So you'd roll, so like in this case, this is a 2. You'd roll 2 dice normally, but you'd also roll 1 blue die. If this symbol hits, you would subtract 1 from this value.
So then the 2 that's over here
Are going to be two black dice probably, so this is a special die on top.
Does that make sense? Because, well, this is them defending. If they were attacking, because this is like if the Western Front were attacking, it said that number doesn't know how many dice they roll.
Yeah, so this number is how many dice they roll. This will be a special effect on top of that. So if they roll this die first, if they get this symbol, then it says subtract 1 from up here. This may affect the number of Axis dice that can be rolled during the Axis die roll.
I was gonna say, so that's not saying. So what it looks like to me is it's saying, okay, you're rolling 2 dice for each of those that you roll. You do whatever the effect is, subtracting it. Where for like the next one down, where it has 3 dice, it looks like you need to roll 2 to subtract from it. So, like if you rolled 2 planes, like what's it just say verbatim?
It said the result may include a special effect, which must be resolved before the actual die roll, on its own or separated by a number of allied combat dice by an arrow symbol. These special effects may be blah, 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 blah. The number of dice in the combat card must be modified by following conditions. Okay, that doesn't answer that yet. After determining the total number of allied combat dice and applying the permanent special effects on the combat card, the players controlling the leading generals roll the allied dice. It does not specifically say. Let's look in the huge example here.
So what did it tell you how many dice to top card, the ally control dice, blah, blah, blah. Use a table that the ally faction that has a combat card. If the ally faction is a defender, cross-reference current year of the defense column.
No, here it is. In this example. A special effect must be performed for 1 plain die, and then 2 dice will be rolled for the Western faction. Yeah, so this, you're rolling this set of dice first for the special effects.
Okay.
Impacting those special effects, and then rolling those amount of dice as your attack dice.
Okay, so then are there effects from the symbols, I guess?
Yeah, that's what I was reading through.
Well, I mean, so if you roll these and got a tank.
No, so for whatever this symbol is, you have to roll a specific symbol for that special effect to go through. If you don't roll that symbol, then that special effect does nothing. So it literally says here, for that plane, roll a die, subtract 1 from the air naval combat value if you have a plane only. This may affect the number of axis dice that can be rolled for combat. If the combat front value is already at 1, nothing happens. But that's the only symbol that changes anything.
Okay.
And then each of the other symbols, all of these, have their own things. And then it says the number of dice in the combat card must be modified for these conditions. If the allied faction is defending and the combat sector is rough, add a combat die.
So what's rough?
I'm assuming that is a marker somewhere. Yeah, what makes it rough? Sector, combat sector. Combat sector is rough.
It must be the color.
That's what I'm assuming. Oh, go to your thing down there.
Oh, it does. Okay, so yeah, so brown is rough.
Okay.
Brown's rough, blue is river, and green is plains. Like grass plains.
Okay, so if it's in a brown sector, you add a combat die. If the allied faction is the defender and a combat section is fortified or has a landing marker, add 2 combat dice.
So fortified is the square.
The black square, yeah.
What was the other one?
Or has a landing marker on it.
Okay.
So that's just a marker.
Yep.
If the Western faction is involved in combat and the air naval value is 1, add 1 Western combat die. Do not add this die if the season is winter. And then finally, if 1 die of the allied faction involved, add 1 dice. For every +1 red or +1 blue symbol in connection to the adjacent area. If the adjacent area is controlled by... Oh, so you get a adjacency bonus.
Okay.
So for every adjacent control, you get +1. So it'll be adjacent connected by a line.
Okay. Would the allies get that +1 also?
Yeah. So +1 red or +1 blue. So equivalent allies and...
So allies get those, okay.
This is the allied section. I'm assuming this will get this as
This
well.
is only allied attacks, right?
This is only allied combat dice, not allied attacks. Because allied could be the defender.
Okay.
But this is just their dice pool.
Okay.
So after determining the number of allied combat dice and applying the special effects, the player controlling the leading general rolls the dice. If there is no leading general, the head of the AG rolls the dice. If there's no head of AG, head of operations roll the dice. The combat dice provided are not a limit on number to be rolled.
Meaning,
Oh,
we really have 5 dice,
You can,
which there's
So you could roll, well, you could potentially have more. So you could roll the rest and just match the symbols equivalently. Yep, okay. So it says, remember that the combat rules of some German generals may affect allied dice roll. Okay. So the general you're using may affect those dice.
Yeah, so like von Bach says cancel one of the blue planes or red plane results in the allied combat roll.
There it goes. Mine, and this card Nick should have, in an allied combat roll, the controlling player may reroll once.
Yeah, I have one over here too. It says you can roll one die in the Axis combat roll.
Oh, you have the Axis and have the allied. Okay. So that was all for the allied combat roll. So it's a little confusing, but pretty much says that on these cards, you have the very far column is how many dice they get. For attacking, the middle column is defending. If in addition to those numbers you see symbols, that means the symbols go first. So you'd roll dice for those symbols. You'd match the symbols based on the rule book here. If you get certain symbols matching the dice, you will get bonus effects. On the Axis side, roll one Axis die of the appropriate color for every army activated in 6.2.1. So up to the stacking limit. So that's good to know here. You don't have to activate all 5. You get to choose, but you have to choose before the allies have rolled how many of those you'll be activating. The number of dice must be modified for the following conditions. If the air naval value is 5, add 1 white combat die, unless it's winter. If the Axis is defending and the sector is rough, so brown, add 1 white combat die. If the area is isolated, roll gray combat dice for panzers, roll white for regular. So that's pretty much means you roll 1 die less, valued less.
Sorry for what again?
If it's isolated, you would normally, so black, you'd actually roll white instead of black, even if you have black troops. So you roll 1 die level less.
If it's black, it'd be gray then. 1 die level less.
Correct. If it's gray, then you roll white.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This, honestly, the player aid is way more clear.
On combat?
For combat, yeah.
The only thing it's clear on?
Well, it just straight up just says, okay, allied combat roll. So first, special effects. Before allied combat roll, then it gives you the symbols, roll the indicated number. So if it has 3 planes, you roll 3 Western dice, lower the result based on the planes you get on this air naval thing, no lower than 1. The reason why that's beneficial for the allied combat is because if their air naval combat or control front equals 1, they're going to get +1 die to roll when they're doing their actual roll that happens as long as it's not winter. And then it has the other effects in here too. It says if winter, apply 1 reduction before combat. So I'm not sure exactly what reduction is specifically.
That might be in here.
Yeah, so reduction is something, but
all right, there's player aids useful in the combat section.
Yeah.
Last thing for the Axis combat dice is if the Axis is the attacker, it is not winter, and the head of operations may choose to use the paratroopers. So paratroopers are sitting over there. If he decides to use the paratroopers, add 1 gray combat die to the Axis combat roll. Then the head of operations rolls a d6. If the result is higher than the number where the paratrooper was, remove the marker from the game. If it is lower than the number where the paratrooper was, move the paratrooper down a space. If the result equals that, it stays where it is. After determining the number and type of dice for the Axis die roll, roll the player that rolled the allied dice, then roll the Axis dice. Check table 1 in your player aid to determine the effects. So the player aid actually is good there too. I looked at it earlier. It just tells you what is a hit, what is not a hit, what gives you other effects, which are those special symbols, the plane, the tank, etc. And then drawing combat event cards. Once all of that is done, combat event resolution. Resolve 1 combat event card for each event result in the combat roll, up to 2. Ignore all combat event results that cannot be resolved before the strategic event deck is empty. Then you go through the actual dice results, compare the number of hits from the Axis to the number of hits from the Allied. Combat results are explained below.
Interesting. So this is also the reason why those planes are a pain. So not only will, so the initial like combat thing, right? If it gets down to 1, it's air naval controls and front equals 1, it's going to get +1 die. But then when it actually comes to the combat resolution, if it's already at 1, then each plane counts as 1 hit. But also during the resolution, the planes will subtract 1 from the air naval control value in the combat's front, and then each subsequent will be 1 hit. So if this was at a 2 and I rolled these 3 planes during, so let's say that the prerequisite, right, is this one plane, right? And we'll say it was at a 3, and the one I rolled ended up being a plane. It moves us down to 2, right? Now I'm going to be rolling 2 dice during the combat right now for these guys. So if I rolled that and got the 2 planes, so one plane moves it down to 1, the other plane counts as a hit.
Yeah.
So that could really suck, because if that first initial roll was the 1, put it at a 1, then that means that this 2 now becomes a 3, adds a die back in, because it says +1 on here. So those 3 planes could be 3 hits if I happen to roll those again during combat.
Interesting.
Jesus.
For victory points, if you are the Axis and you are the attacker, the number of hits from the Axis combat roll, if greater than the Allied combat roll, who are the victor, reward 1 PP to the player controlling the leading general. Apply 1 advance, which will be covered in a moment. Then the activated head of the AG may conduct a second advance if you're in a plains or river section that does not contain a landing marker. In order to conduct the second advance, apply 1 reduction, which will be covered here in a minute to answer your question from earlier, to armies participating in combat. If the second advance is conducted, get an additional PP to the player who controls the head of the AG group. And then it just goes through here, defeat. So defeat, obviously, the hits are the opposite direction. Allies are higher than Axis. The player who controls the leading general loses a PP and applies a reduction. On the reverse, you're going to kind of have the same thing. So if you're defending and you're the Axis, if the Axis dice are higher, you get 1 PP for controlling the leading general. Heads of army groups do not get PP in defensive victories. If the number of hits from the Axis equals Allied, you suffer attrition. The activated head of the AG must apply a retreat or a reduction. If a retreat is applied, they become questioned. And then defeat is obviously lower hits than the other side. For every hit difference, the activated head of the AG must apply 1 retreat or 1 reduction. If at least 1 retreat or 2 reductions are applied, flip the leading general and the activated head of the AG to questioned. The player who controls the leading general subtracts a PP. So pretty much says if you win, you're moving up PP. If you lose, you're moving down. But there's also other negative effects that'll happen, which is typical kind of any war game.
Yeah.
So last things here is how to advance, retreat, retrition, all of that. So for advancement, in order to conduct an advance, move the Allied control disk to the next numbered sector. Then move the Axis control disk to the sector vacated. If the Allied control disk was in the 1 sector, place a new Axis control disk in that sector. Do not move the Axis control disk from an adjacent area. Flip the Western Soviet alignment marker to its disputed side. So in that case,
If this was gone, these would just shift.
yes.
And then we would put a new one there.
Move the
Because this is already there, so we put an Axis one.
Move
here.
the Allied control disk to the next highest sector. Move the Axis control disk to the vacated. If the Allied was in the 1, place an Axis disk in the sector.
Oh, if the Allied was there. Okay, so nothing would go there then.
In that specific
We
case.
just shift over.
But like this would shift over, and
That's
then
what you-
one goes down.
Gotcha.
And then do not move Axis control disk from an adjacent area. Then flip the Western Soviet alignment markers to the disputed side. The head of operations may move all armies that participate in combat to the combat area without exceeding stack limits.
What was the last part?
Why would you... The head of operations may move all the armies that participate in combat to the combat area without exceeding stacking limits.
So could these guys?
He moved up.
Well, because these guys are adjacent. Are these the? Is this army able to fight here with them? Was that what it was mentioning earlier?
No, just the head, I thought was. But maybe he's controlling that army. I guess. It says that if at least 2 armies advance to the combat area, move the activated head of AG to the combat area. Adjust combat positions as per 2.3. What?
Are we skimming?
No, we definitely did not. Combat area. The armies in play must be either in the armies boxes or in the force pool. Armies enter the force pool during setup and when told to do so. Cool. Armies are deployed. Yep, we already know how to do that. The stacking limits the number. Each army's box has 1 or 2 AG heads. Okay, yeah.
Well, it's not going to be the beginning. It'll be talking about during the combat sections where it would say.
No, it said 2.3, and that was 2.3. Adjust combat positions as per... Oh! I guess that would be these combat positions, if need be.
These aren't combat positions.
All right.
No, those are just AG heads.
This section's not clear then. Let's keep reading and see what happens. If the Allied control disk was in the highest numbered sector,
Yep.
remove it from the... So that's this case. Remove it from the map.
Mm-hmm.
Replace the disputed marker with occupied.
That's if there's only one.
Oh, because these would move up. And
Yeah,
then
so
if it
once
attacks
it's
again,
gone,
then
it
it's
becomes
gone.
occupied.
Yes. That makes sense. If there's the symbol like that, add 1 to the track. That makes sense. So now let's reread. So it says conduct an advance. So advance is you're moving those. That makes sense. If the Allied controls was in the 1, place Axis down. That makes sense. Flip the Western Soviet to disputed because now it would be disputed. That makes sense. Head of operations may move all the armies that participate in combat to the combat area.
So that's the combat area.
Of that area, yeah, but those would be the armies participating. Like what? And let, because activating head of the AG doesn't activate armies.
Wait a minute. Go back to where I was talking about what armies could be used. Did it said you could use armies from the force pool?
No, never said that.
What was the same back here with the back page?
What?
Well, the one we're just reading something in the 1 page back. Was talking about armies. No, maybe not.
No. So do combat activating generals. So you can activate the head generals, activate leading generals.
So this
But
section
this-
here, we're talking about this general fighting over here. There's no armies here.
So combat example, there was no army group in the combat area in Ukraine. So the head of operations decided to activate the army group adjacent. Oh, okay. So in that scenario only, if he's fighting in here, he can move these armies over
Okay,
afterwards.
So
if
it's-
you win.
got it. So
Because you're advancing your troops into the territory you took over. That
got
makes
it.
sense.
So it wouldn't be. So here we wouldn't be like if we only had
3 participating, they just stay there.
like that. We wouldn't have these guys. These guys can't advance in.
Well, no, because they want to be fighting in there because you already have troops here. I think this is like you're driving the line to go fight in there, and then you're advancing forward.
Does it say it's only if it's a? Because they're pretty clear about giving rules. Does it say it's only
Yeah, this.
like not the example, but like
Yeah,
it's
so that
talking about it.
was if the area with an Axis combat pawn is controlled by allies. Select an adjacent area with at least 1 Axis army which is not engaged in combat in the current operation.
That's what this is. Controlled by allies.
Yeah,
Got it.
which means you wouldn't have troops there.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's the only scenario where you're charging in.
Got it.
Okay, So to clarify for everyone, so advancement is if you were fighting and advancing, you win. You can then move troops from where you were fighting over the border into the new zone.
Yeah, that's only the only time you can do that if it's a situation like this where the area is controlled by an allied force via
Or
this marker
Soviet force.
or Soviet. Well, those are all considered allied, aren't they?
Not yet.
Yeah, but
Well, actually, yeah. When the Soviet markers go out, they'll be considered allies.
Yeah. So I was like, wait, what?
Because they'll be fighting with us to start.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be fighting against them anyway. But yeah, so that's where you can use this general or over here to fight in here to try and move your troops into there.
Yes.
Where here, this is neutral currently. So, or here, even better example, this is neutral currently, and there's nobody there, so you wouldn't be fighting to come in. You would just move in there and during the movement phase.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that is advancing, and you can do that up to twice potentially, depending if you used AGs or not. So you might be able to do 2 advancements. Retreat is if you lost the battle, you potentially have to retreat with your generals. So if you have to apply a retreat, you move the Axis control disk to the lowest numbered sector. So Axis will go down. Move Allied to the vacated space. Retreats must be applied even after all armies have been eliminated. Restrictions. As a result of the retreat, an Axis control disk may be moved up to a maximum of 3 sectors. If there are unsatisfied hits after an Axis control disk has moved 3 sectors, any remaining hits would be satisfied as reductions, which we explain later. I think it said that way. It said the number of hits is how many you move.
These are called sectors,
Yes.
I assume? Okay, so up to 3 because there's 4 here, so you can go from 4 down to 1.
Yes. If the Axis control disk was in the highest number, place a new allied in that sector. If the area is a USSR home area, place a Soviet control disk, even if the retreat was a consequence of a Western attack. Remove the occupied satellite alignment marker from the area's alignment box. Replace it with disputed.
Okay.
Which makes sense. So, like down there, those satellites become disputed. Okay. If the Axis control disk was in the 1 space, remove it from their map. Place a disputed marker, either Soviet or Western, in those locations. The head of operations must follow the following steps. Move all armies in the area to an adjacent area that is controlled by the Axis or is disputed without going over stacking limits. So they could go down there.
Split those.
Or, yeah.
It's like you could do
Well,
2
you can't
down.
go over there. Oh, I should go over
Yeah,
here. Yeah. I was looking there.
Then you could do 3 over there.
Yeah.
Now you need to get generals there.
Yeah, those become
Or
vacant.
a
So
general,
this would become a vacancy.
Mm-hmm.
Remove the marker of the head of the AG from that area. It may be placed in another area if allowed. So those would come off.
Mm-hmm.
Eliminate any armies that cannot be withdrawn or had stacking limit issues.
Mm-hmm.
If further retreats must be applied after following those steps, they are applied in an adjacent area. So there might be times we have to retreat twice. If the if the Axis control disk is on a Festung space, all retreat results in the area must be applied as reductions. The Axis control disk is removed from the map when there are no Axis armies left in the area.
So if it's there, they wouldn't be retreating at all. They would just be straight up reductions.
Correct.
So here we would just be reducing.
Yeah, which I haven't got to reductions.
Whatever that ends up meaning. So because that's on the Festung,
yeah,
we would reduce this into a balsamic place.
But like southern Italy, if that had a retreat, he would just move up here. When an Axis control disk is removed from Festung, place the removed control disk in the collapse of Germany box.
Oh, that's how it goes in.
Move the Ally control disk in. So the Allies would get a disk in because they've now taken it over. Replace the disputed marker in the alignment box with an alignment marker of the faction indicated by the control disk. So like a Western marker would go down. The leading general, all heads of AG, and the head of OB in the front box are dismissed and removed from play. and then subtract 1 from the resource level.
Right now. What did it say earlier about over here, that being USSR instead?
Yeah, those are USSR territories.
Right. So like, would
That's
that
what they-
be like right now? Would that?
No, that's not USSR. That's Poland.
It's in the red area.
No, red's the Eastern Front.
Oh,
That's USSR. Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, I was mixing up because I was doing that because they color coded it blue and red.
Oh, it's just Western Front, Eastern Front, Southern Front.
Got it. Should have made that a different color. Never mind.
Red is both Nazi and Soviet.
What do I mean? Because now it's like,
Because the thing is, right now they are allies
yeah.
to the other Axis powers.
No, I mean I was
And then they
confusing
become
that
allied
this
powers.
would also be red, but it's only like the USSR
Yeah.
flags. Got it.
So the summary there for retreating is if you're somewhere without a Festung space, you have to retreat out if you can. If you have armies that don't fit anywhere else due to stacking, they're just gone. If you are in a Festung space, you remove that marker. That marker goes into the collapse of Germany location. The territory gets taken over, so in this case by the Western Army. And then all heads will get removed from the game. And then subtract 1 from your resource pool. Next up, army elimination and reduction. And we only have 1 section left after this, then it covers for events. And then we're done.
Nice.
Actually, there's 1 section left in here, too. Which we'll get back to at the end, but that's it. When a German army is eliminated, move it to the force pool. When a satellite army is eliminated, remove it from the game.
So boom. You'd be.
In order to apply a reduction, follow this priority. If a Panzer black and a regular gray, eliminate the Panzer, replace it with gray from the force pool.
So this was the situation there. We had 4 gray and we had the 4 gray, the 1 black. So the black would go out to the forest pool and the gray would come in.
So you're reducing the level. So same thing. If there's gray, gray would go out, white would come in.
So the 4 gray would entirely go out?
No. 1.
Well, if you have to reduce them all, don't you?
If there's a regular...
Well, normally you can do one for one.
No, you choose. So
Yeah,
it
earlier.
says... So in this case, it said, like, choose 2 reductions.
Oh, okay.
So you'd only reduce 2 units.
Got it.
So in this case, if you had to do 1 reduction, let's say, 1 gray could become 1 white. So you can go down by levels. That's the first steps of reduction. If there's a satellite army, it's gone. If there's a white army, gone. Because there's no levels below that.
If that's what you choose to reduce.
Correct. But like in this case, you have only white, so
Yeah.
yeah. If there's a black Panzer and a reduced army, so a black and a white, eliminate the Panzer army, replace it with a reduced army.
Oh.
So you're going all the way to the lowest level there.
This was a situation.
Black would become white.
If it specifically was just a panzer and a reduced.
Yes.
It goes straight down to white.
Yeah.
Interesting.
If there's a gray, but no reduced, eliminate. No reduced in the force pool, eliminate it, because there's nothing to replace it with. So if the available unit to reduce down to is not available in the force pool, that unit completely is just gone.
Well, so
Same
then was
thing
that...
is if there's a black here and no gray available.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
So black only goes down to white if it's a black and white sharing the space,
Interesting.
according to the rules. If there's a black in the space and there's no gray available in the force pool, the black's just gone completely.
That's so weirdly specific.
So you have to like monitor how you have your army set up versus the force pool.
Yeah, that sounds like an awkward like play testing thing that they just kind of ran into. Like, how do we balance this? Like, oh, why don't we just have it be black straight to white if this is a situation? I guess that incentivizes you to try to level up your armies evenly.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I'm just gonna level up this one, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. Amphibious combat, which is now the water.
Bring on the frogs.
Only German regular and satellite armies can participate in amphibious combat. So gray and yellow. The maximum number of armies that may participate is indicated in the boxes here, but it's a smaller number.
Mm.
So you can activate a head of an AG and a leading general, as we discussed in normal combat, but do not apply their combat rules. Amphibious cannot be affected by generals in any way. So you can still activate them, so you get PP for winning, but you not use any of their effects. The number of dice to be rolled has these conditions. If the air naval value is 5, you get 1 white combat die, unless it's winter.
Mm.
If paratroopers are used, get 1 gray combat die. Use the procedure that we already went over on how the paratrooper marker moves. Do not add the die if it's winter. No allied dice are rolled. Instead, draw a combat card and cross-reference the current year row with the defense column in the active combat card to determine success. So, example. So you have a card right there. So the example is if you're attempting to attack and you draw a combat card, and we're saying the year, let's say, is 1939,
Mm-hmm.
you would have the defense here, 3.
Mm-hmm.
So if the following combat card is drawn, at least 3 hit markers on any of the appropriate dice must be rolled to achieve victory.
Hmm.
If the Axis was attempting this card... okay. So it's saying, yeah, so if you attempted this card in 1939, 1942, you need 3. If you attempted in 43, you need 4.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
So what did it say about the smaller numbers?
that's the maximum number of armies that can participate.
Doesn't make sense then.
Why?
Because these all say 0, so you would never be able to beat them. Even here it says 2, so you wouldn't be able to beat it.
Let's see. The number of dice to be... Oh, no, because... No, that's where you had the modifiers. So it says if it's a 5, you could have 2 armies participate if you have 2 armies available.
Right.
If it's a 5, add 1 white combat die. If paratroopers, you can add a gray.
Okay.
So with the modifiers, you can get up to 4 dice. 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Okay.
I feel like we're playing Clue. 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 2. Yeah, so you can get up to the max. I'm assuming 4 has to be the max then. But that's why I'm assuming water warfare is significantly harder.
Yeah, it must be.
If the result is the victory, add 1 PP to each general, leading general, and activated head of AG. Then follow these steps. If the amphibious combat pawn is on a base, place an occupied marker in the base alignment box. Do not move any armies to the base. Once occupied, a base cannot be attacked by the Allies. If the amphibious combat pawn is in Great Britain, up here, place an Axis control list in Southampton, move the Western control list to London, flip the Western alignment to Disputed, place the open port marker in the port box, and apply a reduction to German armies that participate in the combat and move them to Great Britain. So it looks like here, that's the only way to get to Britain is amphibious.
Yeah.
Which makes sense,
Mhm.
until you maybe can attack by air at some point.
Mm.
Which is probably a project that allows you to do that or something.
Maybe.
So I'm assuming coming into here, if you're in either of these 2 spaces, you can only do amphibious warfare.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be successful. Then you move this over. This becomes disputed. Your token goes there.
Mm-hmm.
This becomes an open port at that time, which hopefully makes travel a little better.
It becomes an open port once it's disputed.
Correct. And then apply a reduction.
Weird.
If the result is defeat, reduce all combat armies and flip the marker of the activated head of AG and leading generals to the question side, like usual.
So amphibious says to produce all combat armies.
To the German armies that participate in the combat. German armies.
Yeah.
Because of Black Orchestra. I'm assuming there's a point where you can become other armies. Well,
Satellites aren't German armies. That's probably what they're specifying.
Oh, true. Yeah, so satellite armies, if you're using those, then you wouldn't have to reduce.
Mm.
It does have a restriction here. If the activated AG attacks from an occupied area with partisan activity, at least one Axis army must remain. Okay, same thing.
Oh, it says all armies. Reduce all participating armies. So
Okay,
satellite armies.
amphibious?
So satellite
Just
would
say
get
that.
removed. Yeah, right there. Amphibious combat results defeat. Reduce all participating armies.
Amphibious combat. Oh, interesting. That's not what this says.
This says all German armies.
This
There.
one says reduction to the German armies. So same thing as earlier. The last marker was like, oh, if you have this, you can't move all your armies out. You have to keep at least one. All right, events. I believe. Oh, we have one thing after events.
Okay. Alrighty. Here we are. Events. Resolve one combat event card for each event result in the combat roll, up to a maximum of 2 event cards. Ignore all combat event results that cannot be resolved because the strategic event deck is empty. So on the combat event card, you have the entry year, the name, condition to add the card to the following year's events, the condition to move the card to the bottom of its deck, non-obligatory unique event, so must be resolved in the New Year phase, and the code setup. So there's different sections on that is not one of the ones you drew at all.
That's the first one. That's why.
You're drawing from the wrong deck. They're talking about combat events.
Combat events.
Oh, weird. What are they? Okay.
Here, one with thing.
Yeah, that's one with a thing.
That is one with a thing.
Yeah. Hilarious. All right. So resolve one strategic event card for each event result in these.
Oh, that's strategic events. Now you're in strategic events.
I said combat first, and then it goes under strategic.
I didn't do this wrong. I was following what you were saying.
So from the beginning, it says resolve one combat event card for each event result in the combat roll up to a maximum of 2 event cards. Ignore all combat event results that cannot be resolved because, their strategic event deck is empty.
Okay.
So resolve one strategic event card for each event result in the strategic warfare roll up to a maximum of 2 event cards.
There it is. That's this number here. Yep.
Or if the combat card drawn for a combat includes the 2-card symbol, that was or. So either it's rolled or a combat card says to draw. So ignore all strategic event results that cannot be resolved because the strategic event is empty. Okay. Same dealio. Okay. So both strategic and combat event cards include a unique event in the box under the illustration. If the unique event has a blue background, it is an obligatory unique event, and it must be resolved during the new year phase if it was not resolved during the year. If the unique event requires a choice, it is made by the player that rolled the event result unless the event states otherwise. So there's some of these that have a blue box in the bottom. So I have this, it's actually blue. So if it's blue and if it wasn't resolved the previous year, it has to be resolved during the new year event phase. When an event card is drawn, first check any conditions for discarding it or shuffling it back in the event deck. So if the condition is met, so it'll be the card with the red X on it like we have here. So if the condition is met, resolve any recurring events on the card and then discard the card. Do not resolve the unique event on the card and do not draw another event card to replace it. If the condition, so then if it has like a little swapping symbol there, if the condition is met, ignore the reoccurring and unique events on the card, place the card at the bottom of the deck, and do not draw another event card to replace it. Then we have this next one down right there. If the condition is met, ignore the recurring unique events on the card, then add the card to the following year's event card, strategic or combat. If the card can be played, resolve the recurring event and then unique event. Then discard the card unless it states it must be added to the following year's events. If the event on the card cannot be resolved, ignore the event and then discard the card or add it to the following year's events as instructed. Strategic event cards also trigger reoccurring events indicated by the symbol on the top left corner of the card. These reoccurring events are increase the USR commitment, So it has the USSR symbol. It says move the USSR commitment marker 1 box to the right in its track. If it enters the war box, activate the USSR. Ignore this event if the USSR commitment marker is already in the war box. So that's that track that's over down here. If you're pushing that up, boop, boop, boop. And then the USA one is the next portion that's talking about here, where you would move that up as well until it gets to the war box, and then you would activate the US and deliver some freedom. Then there is the skull, which is misfortune, and then there is the like 2 of these that are crossed, which is the influence count. And we'll go over that here in a moment for both of those. So USSR activation. The USSR can be activated as a result of the Barbarossa 1 military directive card, or because the USSR commitment marker enters the war box and is tracked as a result of a recurring event. So I imagine if we don't push it to the war spot, then based
Operation
on the
Barbarossa
year
did
when
it.
it actually did it, well,
That was Hitler's worst decision of the war. That's what cost literally what cost Nazi Germany. If Nazi Germany didn't do Operation Barbarossa,
yeah.
they would have won World War II.
Oh my God.
That's when they split their forces, half this way, half to go after Stalin and try to take Russia.
What's
And they all died.
What's the show? Man on the Hill? Man in the High Castle? Man in the High
High
Castle.
Castle. Yeah.
That's what it almost was. Crazy. When activating the USSR, follow these steps. Place a disputed marker in the alignment box of Area 5, which is up here.
Baltic states.
Place a Soviet alignment marker in the alignment boxes of Areas 6 to 13.
Should be all of USSR.
Both included, so 6 and 13 included. Place a Soviet control disk in Sector 2 of Area 5 and in Sector 1 of Areas 6 through 13. Both
Sure.
including 6 and 13, yeah. Move the USSR commitment marker to the war box in its track if it's not already there. It is no longer affected by the increased USSR commitment recurring event, obviously. Starting this operation phase and until the end of the game, resolve a Soviet offensive segment in every operations phase. So Soviets hate Germany now.
Yep.
All right, USA. So the USA can be activated as a result of the declaration of war on the U.S. political directive card, or because the USA commitment marker enters the war portion as well. When activating the USA, do the following. Move the USA commitment marker to the war box in its track. If it's not already there, it's no longer affected by the increase in USA commitment event. Yep. Starting this turn and until the end of the game, count star results on the strategic warfare segment as hits.
Yep.
So game gets harder. Misfortune. If the misfortune recurring event is triggered, roll 1 gray die. Treat any result other than that target symbol as no result. On a result of that target symbol, select an eligible general to be affected by the event. All generals within misfortune section on their cards are eligible on the year indicated in the card and in all later years. Okay, so they don't automatically die then.
No,
So,
I
bottom of the
figured that out earlier too, yeah.
Nice.
So the misfortune, it might be very misfortunate, but it might not be as bad.
Right. So
Or he just tries to commit suicide like every turn until it's successful.
yeah. I mean, it all depends on the event. So I wonder how many misfortunes are on those events.
Yeah.
If there's no eligible generals in play, ignore the misfortune event. If there's only one eligible general, select him. Period. If there's more than one eligible general, select one at random. Remove the selected general's marker and card from play. The marker that was in the AG, OG head box is replaced with vacancy marker. Yep. Influence count. So that's the 2, well, whatever those are. Each general belongs to one of 4 interest groups. Old guard, sympathizers, professionals, and dissidents. Yeah, those are those markers over here. That's on your tokens and cards as well. Influence reflects the ascendancy of these groups in the Wehrmacht. Players other than the head of OKW receive random hidden agenda cards at the beginning of the scenario during the reorganization of the High Command. These cards may award bonus PPs to players according to the influence points accumulated by the influence group they represent. Other scenarios dispense with agenda cards and influence counts all together. Every time the influence count recurring event is triggered, award influence points to each interest group according to the following distribution: For each general card in a general in command space on the player boards, add 2 influence points to his interest group. For each general card in the activated general's deck on the player boards, add 1 influence point to his interest group. For this count, generals with a dissident marker on their markers are considered to belong to the dissident's interest group, not their original interest group. Okay, so on here, the dissidents, of course, is the same symbol, the little Hitler with the cross through it. And then the other one they're talking about was one of those other 3 influence groups. The influence of each group is monitored using the matching influence markers on the general track. If the interest group exceeds 50 influence points, flip its marker over to influence plus 50 side and move it to the 0 box. Jesus. Coup attempt. Coup attempt.
Coup. I was like, coop.
Yes, there's no E
Chicken?
after. There's no E after. Yes, coup attempt.
There's no, well, that's not how you spell coop either.
Yes, it is. C-O-U-P-E.
No, C-O-O-P.
No, that's co-op.
It's coop.
No, it's
Chicken coop. C-O-O-P.
Yeah, but like a coupe is C-O, like a car, a coupe is C-O-U-P-E.
Oh, a car.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure.
I had to search your Rolodex.
No, I heard C-O-P-E the first time. I'm like, I don't know this word at all.
When the event card coup attempt is played, black orchestra cards are used to determine whether anti-Nazi dissidents succeed in their attempt to assassinate Hitler and thus end the war. Players acquire black orchestra cards whenever one of their generals is dismissed or becomes a dissident.
I really hope Ava Braun is in this game somewhere. His wife just randomly just shoot and you miss Hitler and hit his wife.
Oh my god. Man. If Germany collapses as a result of a successful coup, the player with the dissident's agenda card is awarded 20 PP.
Which is instant win almost.
The procedure to determine the result of the coup attempt is the following. Each player secretly selects which black orchestra card he wants to play among the ones he has on his board. Cards with a positive value contribute to the success of the coup. Cards with a negative value make it more difficult. A player may choose to play all, some, or none of his black orchestra cards. Players place the selected cards face down before them simultaneously. Shuffle all the selected cards together with any black orchestra cards remaining in the black orchestra deck. Calculate the total value of the played cards. The head of the OKW reveals them one by one, adding or subtracting their value from the accumulated total. The value of the Friedrich Fromm and von Kluge cards depend on the accumulated total when they are revealed. If the accumulated total is equal to or higher than 3, their value is +1. If the accumulated total is lower than 3, their value is -1. So that's for those cards specifically. Add 2 points for every controlled disc in the collapse box. That's this area here. And 1 point for every general marker in an AG head or OB head box with a dissident marker. The accumulated total of the coup value, the outcome of the coup attempt, depends on the comparison between the coup value and the fanaticism value. The coup value is higher than the fanaticism value. It's a successful coup. Hitler is assassinated, and a military junta is established. Is that how you pronounce that? Junta? J-U-N-T-A?
J-U-N-T. Junta? Yeah.
Yes. Is established to sue for peace. The game ends with the collapse of Germany. Proceed to victory determination. The coup value is equal to or lower than the fanaticism value and higher than 5. Infighting. Hitler is assassinated, but his regiment is not overthrown, so there is open conflict within Germany. Have the fanaticism value, rounding up, and move all replacement markers to the production table to 0. In the production table to 0. The coup value is equal to or lower than the fanaticism value and equal to or lower than 5. It's a failed coup, which is the historical result. It says there is no effect. Nice.
Because no one overthrew Hitler. He just offed himself, allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah. All right. Do you want to read Italy and France?
Sure. My
All right, here we
people.
go. Going back.
What?
I'll say we're just bouncing back and forth in short sections.
Oh, these are okay. Yeah, you can read them to see.
Fanaticism.
Italy.
La, la, la.
The status of Italy is indicated by the status of Italy marker on its box on the map. The number of German armies that may be deployed to Italian home areas is limited to the value of this marker. So right now it's that little marker that says State of Italy. Independence. No German armies can be deployed into any of Italy's home areas. So we broke the game already. No, actually those are satellite armies. We're good.
Yeah.
Intervention, which is the other side of that little thing.
Yep.
A maximum of one German army may be in one single Italian home area at a given time, Libya included. Intervention is triggered as a result of the strategic event card, Italy defeated in Africa, or political African core. Occupation. So if that tile is completely gone, that little thing is completely gone, occupation, there is no limit to the number of German armies. Occupation is automatically triggered when Italy surrenders or occupation of Italy, political directive. When the occupation of Italy is triggered, do the following. Eliminate all satellite armies in areas 22 and 23.
Oh, 22, 23, so just...
Yeah.
27.
Flip the satellite alignment to occupied in those two areas. Any German armies and Axis control discs remain in place. 26, 27, 28, which are the bottom three. Eliminate all Axis armies. Remove Axis control discs from the map. Place Western control discs in the one sector in each area. Replace the satellite and disputed alignments with Western alignment. So pretty much, Southern Italy is taken over by Hitler, then all of a sudden the West comes to the rescue of Northern Africa, Libya,
Southern
and
and
Egypt.
Northern Italy.
Well, Italy. Yeah, Italy as a whole.
Oh, you said Southern Italy.
Oh, I did? Oh,
Yeah, that's what I was supposed to
all of Italy.
Yeah.
Italy's box in the force pool, eliminate all satellite armies. And remove that little status marker from play. That one, yeah. France, similar. France also has a status marker. It starts on the Third Republic. That means France belongs to the Western faction. If France collapses as the Fall of Gelb military directive card, its status changes to Vichy. There's Vichy.
Jesus
I'm like,
Christ.
Vichy is France. Like, I know the city. It was a major war area. Vichy starts as a neutral country, comprising of areas 21 and 26. When the strategic event card Vichy collapse is resolved, the status of France becomes FFL, which would be the blank.
Wait, so it says it was 21 and 26? Oh.
21 and
So
26.
France, Northern Africa.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when the Vichy collapse happens, that disappears. You get FFL. If
Friends for life.
Yeah. If FFL occurs, if there is a satellite alignment marker in the alignment box of 21 or 26, make it occupied. The head of operations must move one German army from any area to 21, but not the last one if it's partisan, and then remove that little status marker from the game.
Interesting.
So pretty much for both Italy and France, based on historical events, Italy was run by Mussolini, required a lot of help from Nazi Germany, so Nazis eventually just kind of take it over for a bit. So if that happens, then these markers disappear. France, obviously, was a major point of the war. So if France gets taken over, they kind of just lose control of all of this eventually.
Damn. Cool. All right, fanaticism and unrest. The fanaticism track reflects the loyalty of the German armed forces and officer corps to the regiment. The PP's and the OKW's agenda card partly depend on the fanaticism value at the end of the game. Fanaticism may increase or decrease as a result of several political, production, military directive, and event cards, as well as the movement of the consumer goods marker in the production table. The fanaticism value can never be lower than 0 or higher than 9. Ignore all results that would cause it to be lower than 0 or higher than 9. The advance of the unrest marker can reduce the fanaticism value. Every time the unrest marker reaches the 3 box on its track, subtract 1 from the fanaticism value, and move the unrest marker to its 0 box. Unrest can increase as a result of OKW overrules, a reduction in the air naval control value in the Germany box, the dismissal of generals, and certain event cards. Some directive cards can also reduce unrest. OKW.
OK and W. Sounds like a root beer.
I think it's an NW root beer.
It's disgusting.
What?
I hate
You don't like
root
root beer?
No.
Oh man, I like a good hard root beer too.
No.
Yeah.
Although I had hard half and half yesterday. Tea and
So good.
it was on draft though, and it's way better.
Oh, nice. Oh yeah, anything on draft's way better. For sure. Where'd you get that?
Surly Goat. They have Giant.
Nice.
Their twisted tea or half and half. It was so good.
Alabama.
Yeah. So OKW overrule option. So the head of the OKW is a beast. He may overrule other players' decisions during any of the segments that are followed by an asterisk. Which I hope that those are asterisks on here, and they are. So in the player guide, they have a bunch of asterisks next to ones that.
Yep.
Pretty much the OKW head can just be like, nah, I don't like what your decisions are.
That would be hilarious if they did in this.
I wouldn't be surprised. The head of the OKW cannot overrule a decision after a die is rolled. So if something changes and then it requires a die roll, OKW has to do it instantly. Be like, now I'm changing it, not after the die roll.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. Once the die has been rolled, all decisions are final. Every time a player is overruled, add 1 to the unrest value. Then the player whose decision was overruled rolls a d6. If you roll a 1 or a 2, subtract 1 from your prestige. For pretty much being a little bitch and getting overruled. Overrules affect various segments. In the planning segment, the head of the OKW may alter the choice of the production directive cards for the new year. In the economy segment, which is all of this administrative phase stuff, the head of the OKW may alter any and all decisions made by the head of operations and head of production. If the head of the OKW has overruled decisions made by head of operations in the replacement step and wishes to alter a decision made by the head of production in the production table step, he must overrule a second time. So like every time you overrule someone, it counts independently. Production directive step. The head of the OKW may alter the choice of the production directive card. So it's pretty much everything we've covered already. Every time it said the OKW can be involved, this is just reiterating that. And then the last thing is victory determination.
So there's no downside to you trying to overrule it.
Well, it's the unrest table goes up every time by 1.
Oh, right.
Every time
even if you attempt. Oh, you always do. You don't
just get it. You don't attempt. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, that'll go up, and then somebody could potentially lose a prestige. So you could purposely push that up, just to get someone to hopefully lose their prestige points.
Yeah. So victory determination.
Victory determination. To determine the winner at the end of the game, players with the hidden agenda cards reveal them, and all players check whether they have met the various requirements in their agenda cards to obtain bonus PPs for the current scenario. We're children. Add any bonus PPs they obtained to the prestige total they had in the general track. So for 2 players, it says each player adds any bonus PPs granted by both of their agenda cards. So we're going to have 2 apiece. The player with the highest total prestige claims victory in the game. Of course it's in the game. I'm not sure claim.
You just get a bonus in real life.
I claim victory. If 2 more players are tied in total prestige, award victory with this priority: dissidents, professionals, sympathizers, old guards, and OKW. And then it has credits.
Woo. Yeah. So there's just a few little pointers here. So this is back to the playbook. So the playbook is where we identified what scenario we were running and then did the initial setup. So it went through the Armageddon on how that setup occurred and everything happened. There is a section here called Play Variants. I'm just going to quickly cover them because some of these sound kind of cool. We are going to play the base version as we just described it, though, in the gameplay.
What was let's find also as you're reading through the variant for what was it? The professions, the one you have.
What? Ooh,
This one.
head of personnel.
Head of personnel. There was a variant for deciding which generals go out, I think, or something like that. I'll see if I can find it.
Oh, okay.
You may end up reading it while I'm looking for it. So.
So for some of the play variants, there is one that you can adjust the difficulty, so you can make it easier or harder. So by doing that, it goes into the combat deck and removing certain cards. We won't do that. There's a semi-cooperative mode, which obviously you find a balance between co-op and competitive. Nick and I definitely don't do that. There is choosing generals and scenarios.
There it is. Oh, no, that's not it.
No, but this is if you're already familiar with the game, you can choose certain generals and how you want to start with them.
Yeah, it's 13.5, by the way, just when you get to it.
Oh, right there. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
There's a campaign mode, which I brought up earlier, so you can break it down into mini segments. There's nominating generals anonymously. So during testing, some players demanded a more structured method to nominating generals for positions and as leading generals in combat. While there's no nomination card that's been added for every player, these cards are dealt to players at the beginning of the game only if they decide to use this variant. So when a general must be nominated to fill a vacancy in a position or as a leading general in battle, each player must place a general card face down before them, following the limitations. If a player places his no nomination card before him, this means he declines to nominate a general. Once all players have placed a card before them, flip them over simultaneously, select a general for the command post, and you use the seniority factors there. If all players use their no nomination card, the head of personnel makes the decision. So we got to find the no nomination cards.
Oh, they're down here.
Oh, so we each get one of those.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. That's why I'm at the bottom, so I wasn't sure there were 4.
So we'd each get one of those, and when we have to nominate, we would each... Because right now, like, I can nominate, and you can just nominate someone with higher seniority and automatically win.
Right.
So this forces... I like that variant. We should definitely do
the
that.
no nomination card to every player at the beginning of the game, then use them as... So, sorry, explain that one more time?
So, if we have to nominate a leading general...
Right.
So, I get one of those, you get one of those.
Yep.
So, we have our list here. So, I go through and I'm like, oh, I can either no nominate, I don't want to nominate at all, or I pick a general, and I put them face down. You do the same and pick a card.
Right.
And then we reveal them. So, if one of us has a no nomination, one doesn't, then this general automatically goes in.
Right.
If we both have no nomination, head of personnel makes the decision. If we both have generals, highest seniority goes in.
Oh, okay.
So, simple as that.
Oh, so it just gives you like a thing to say I don't want to nominate someone then.
Yeah, it just eliminates the fact that like I can put down 7 and you can be like, oh, I'm gonna put down 8 now for seniority.
So you don't know, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it's the random effect. I like that variant. So we'll do that one.
So it's essentially the same thing, just that it makes it so that you can't be like, well, now why even try?
Exactly.
Got it.
So there's that variant, which that's probably the one we will add.
Yeah.
Then there's the allied player. We won't add this, but I like this. So this one allows you to run solitaire with 2 players, or add a 5th player, where someone plays as allies.
Interesting.
So you can have solitaire here versus allied, or you could play 4 players as Axis and 1 allied.
Interesting.
So you could run this as actually a campaign with a group. So those are the different variants that they offer in this game. We do have 2 other pieces here, though.
Yep.
Which came with the Kickstarter. So the Twilight Generals, those are just extra generals. They're already put out in here for the years they'll be available. We have the Field Marshal cards. So that's that deck at the top. So we covered this earlier. That just helps tiebreaker scenarios. So during game setup, the 14 Field Marshal cards are placed there. Each card has prerequisites that a player must meet in order to claim it. When a player meets the prerequisites, you obtain the card. So those will actually get placed available for us all to look at. It's only granted to the player that first meets the prerequisite. If another player meets it later on, sucks to suck. You know, first to last.
God, that's a lot to remember.
At the end of the game, if there's a tie, the resolve in favor of the most cards.
Yeah. So
it also said you can leave them out, so we can like put them like right here, all face up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it looks like a lot of them are just like, so the player controls leading general who's conquered Metz Area 21. So it's a lot of it's just controlling the leading general who conquered
Okay.
I think that's all it is.
Just different areas.
Baghdad. Oh, this one's longer. The player controls leading general in a combat in which the Axis is the attacker. The allied faction has at least 3 dice, and the Axis
That's good.
has obtained at least twice the number. So just Axis has obtained a victory as a defender. Player as the head of production has obtained a victory as a strategic warfare and Axis field combat dice. And the player, the head of operations at the end of the turn, combined value naval control tracks equal to C. Okay.
So I guess what we should do, since we can just line them all over there face up.
Yeah, most of them are conquering areas, and those areas might be they're not grouped together because what that says 8. But most of them are conquering areas. The other ones are like just super long, about like So really, after an area's been conquered, just double checking those. Okay, did I have a leading general?
So that's only for tiebreaker scenarios. That doesn't give you PP. It'll only be at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
We also have the Winds of War, which is an optional module. The Winds of War cards are dealt during the scenario setup after the players have chosen the sections of high command cards, so our 4 leaders. Each player is dealt 2 Winds of War cards, which he places face down next to their board after choosing one of the 2. Each player then discards the other card. These cards are put together with so discard these, make a deck. Put it over wherever.
Over there.
The players cannot check the cards removed from the game, obviously.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So let's go look through the deck.
Got it.
Playing these cards, the players must keep their cards a secret. A player may play the Winds of War card provided the prerequisite is met. A player must play his card without consulting other players. The effects are immediately applied. And then the head of the OKW may overrule number 10. So whatever card number 10 is, home front sacrifices. If he decides to overrule it, it gives them information. So for example, for a few of these, it just says like, if I want to use this one, I get to draw 2 Black Orchestra cards. Or Unrest goes up. And so Unrest goes up. Do not question the head of army who decided to retreat. So that won't get flipped. So stuff like that. So randomly, we'll get 2 of these. We pick one to keep. And as long as the prerequisite, which is on top, is met, we can play one of these. So why not add that too?
Yeah.
That's easy enough. Yeah.
Cool.
But all right. That was a lot of information for everyone. We'll make chapters.
Oh, yeah.
We'll put some clarifications in if we need to after we're watching this. But this is going to go up this Friday. We'll launch it because next Monday, 3 days after this video goes up, we will be playing starting about 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yep. On Twitch.
Until we collapse Germany or
ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be going right 9 a.m. Like you said, PST. We'll be on Twitch. So jump over to Bald and Board Games on Twitch and join us at some point during the day.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun day. We'll take it very lackadaisically. So we'll be playing. We'll be zoned in playing. But like we'll be taking food breaks in the middle or whatnot. Pee breaks.
Yeah. We'll get some snacks and stuff.
We're not Nazis here.
We'll definitely, yeah. Not gonna be Nazis about the Nazi game. Yeah, we'll definitely, the first couple rounds will definitely be like having to go to this.
Reviewing the useless sheet.
Like,
Doesn't tell us anything.
Well, like the order of like events stuff. Like, okay, rule book. So this thing is gonna get destroyed.
And the benefit is, because the other one's identical, we can each have one.
Is it identical?
Yeah, literally. Here it is. So like if you open that up to like pick a section number.
4.5.
So 4.5, what's the name?
Western Offensive Segment.
So literally Western Offensive Segment has this symbol. So like this symbol means it's identical. And it just goes through. I think this one goes a little bit deeper in depth for co-op. But I think it gives all the same information that gives you.
Nice. Cool.
Because this said, fall. This is landing. And like how the card works. Yeah.
Cool.
So we should be able to use both of those.
Yeah.
But setup will be exactly the same as we just discussed in this video because we're running this exact scenario.
Yep. Well, so we'll end up going through setup again. So you get to see that, how that gets going. Things will make a little bit more sense now as well, putting out...
Seeing it.
The various things. Yeah, trying to read through that rule book without going through and like doing the setup and seeing the things tangibly. Most of the like that's how I learn most games, right? I can like read it and like the very like
I cannot. That's why I do this.
Well, the pictures that they have are usually good enough. For like, okay, 1 to 1, 2 to 2. Okay, I see all this, and then like I just have it in my mind as I'm continuing to read through. So like, okay, if you're talking about moving a card from here to here, I can see like it doing that.
Here, dude.
Here I was watching, I was like, I don't know what any of these things mean. But alrighty. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that very long rulebook rundown of Other Side of the Hill by NAC Wargames.
Yes.
This was a Bald and Board Games production. I'm Bald.
On board.
We will see you at the table
In Berlin.
on the front.